When a billionaire's secret assistant dismantles his empire in a single night, the world watches, and everything burns. Julian Vance thought he owned the room, the power, the silence. He was wrong. The woman he'd ignored for 3 years just walked into his gala wearing red, and in less than 60 seconds, she'd torn apart every assumption he'd ever made about control. What happens when the invisible become undeniable? When the game you designed becomes your own trap? Stay until the end. This isn't a love story. This is a reckoning. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the hallway outside Julian Vance's office hummed with a frequency that made Alara's teeth ache. She stood there at 6:47 a.m., coffee burning her fingertips through the paper cup, her other hand balancing a stack of briefing folders that Julian would flip through for exactly 90 seconds before making decisions that would shift millions. The building was still empty, quiet, the kind of quiet that felt like held breath. She'd been doing this for 3 years. 3 years of arriving before dawn, of anticipating needs before they were spoken, of existing in the margins of a world that had never once asked her name during introductions. She was the assistant, sometimes that girl. Once, memorably, the one who handles things. Alara pushed the door open with her hip. Julian's office sprawled before her like a temple to ego, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Manhattan skyline. Furniture that cost more than most people's cars, air that smelled faintly of bergamot, and money. She set the coffee on his desk exactly 4 inches from the edge, right-handed side. She laid the folders in priority order. She adjusted the blinds to filter the morning sun at the angle he preferred, 23 degrees from vertical. She'd learned not to think about how she knew these things. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. She knew his footsteps, the particular rhythm of his gait, the way he entered a room like he was displacing oxygen just by existing. "Morning," Julian said. Not a greeting, a statement of fact. "Good morning, Mr. Vance." Alara moved toward the door. "The Steinberg contract is on top. They're expecting your call by 9. The Shanghai team sent revised projections, 3rd folder, and your mother called the main line 4 times yesterday." Julian's jaw tightened. She knows not to call the office. "I told her you'd call back." "Don't." Alara paused at the threshold. "Noted." She left before he could say anything else, before the silence could stretch into the kind of moment that required acknowledgement. That was the trick. Disappear before you become visible. The morning dissolved into its usual chaos. Phones ringing across 3 continents. Emails that demanded responses measured in minutes, not hours. A junior associate who'd screwed up a filing deadline and was now sweating through his Brooks Brothers shirt in the conference room while Julian dissected his competence with surgical precision. Alara took notes, ordered lunch, rescheduled 2 meetings and confirmed a 3rd. She was efficient, invisible, exactly what they'd hired her to be. At 2:17 p.m., Vivian Hale swept into the office like weather. She was the kind of beautiful that seemed designed to make other people feel inadequate. Bone structure that belonged on magazine covers, clothes that whispered obscene price tags, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was also Julian's fiancée, though Alara had never actually seen them touch with any real affection. Their relationship seemed more like a merger, 2 powerful entities combining assets. "Is he in?" Vivian asked, not looking at Alara. "Conference call with Singapore. Should be done in 10. "I'll wait." Vivian settled into one of the leather chairs like she owned it. She pulled out her phone, thumbs moving with the speed of someone who'd never had to work for anything, and resented the concept. Alara returned to her desk. She could feel Vivian's presence like a low-grade headache. "You know," Vivian said after a moment, still not looking up from her screen, "I was thinking about the gala next week. The annual Sterling and Vale Gala. The event where Manhattan's elite gathered to network and pretend they cared about whatever charity was fashionable that quarter. Alara had organized every detail for the past 2 years. Invitations on embossed cardstock, seating charts that navigated egos and alliances, a string quartet that cost more than her annual salary. "Everything's confirmed," Alara said. "The final guest count is 342. 343. Vivian corrected, looking up with a smile that made Alara's stomach drop. "I think you should come." The office seemed to contract. Alara's fingers stilled on her keyboard. That's very generous, but I don't think— Oh, I insist. Vivian's voice had gone syrup sweet, which somehow made it worse. You work so hard on these things. You should get to enjoy it. Wear something nice. Mingle. It'll be fun. There was nothing fun about the way she said it. Julian's door opened. He emerged looking exhausted in that specific way powerful men do when they've been reminded that not everything bends to their will. His eyes moved from Vivian to Alara and back again, some calculation happening behind his expression that Alara couldn't read. Darling! Vivian stood, kissed Julian's cheek with the precision of a practiced movement. I was just telling Alara she should come to the gala. Julian's eyebrows lifted fractionally. The gala? Yes, she's worked so hard, she deserves to celebrate. Vivian looped her arm through Julian's, a gesture of possession. Don't you think? Something passed between them. Some silent conversation in a language Alara didn't speak. Julian's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile on someone else. Sure, he said. Why not? Alara felt like she'd just been pushed into deep water. Mr. Vance, I really don't think— It's settled, Vivian said brightly. I'll have an invitation sent to your apartment. It's the Waldorf, black tie, 7 p.m. You have something appropriate to wear, don't you? The question landed like a slap. They both knew she didn't. They both knew that was the point. I'll figure it out, Alara said quietly. Wonderful. Vivian's smile could have cut glass. This will be so much fun. They left together, Vivian chattering about something inconsequential, Julian's hand at the small of her back. Alara sat at her desk and stared at her screen without seeing it. Her heart was hammering. Her hands felt cold. She knew a trap when she saw one. The invitation arrived 2 days later, delivered to her apartment by courier. Heavy cardstock, gold embossing, her name spelled correctly for once. She held it in her hands and tried to imagine walking into that ballroom, into that world of people who looked through her like she was furniture. People who thought the greatest cruelty was indifference, but had weaponized it into an art form. She should decline, send her regrets, claim illness or a prior engagement, or simple good sense. Instead, she went to a thrift shop in Brooklyn and found a dress the color of arterial blood. The week leading up to the gala was a masterclass in psychological warfare wrapped in politeness. Partners who'd never spoken to Alara directly suddenly found reasons to stop by her desk, to ask if she was excited about the event, to offer unsolicited advice about not overdoing it with her outfit, to remind her, in countless small ways, that she didn't belong. Marcus Chen, one of the senior partners, actually laughed when someone mentioned it in the break room. God, I'd pay to see that. Alara win at the Waldorf. What's next? Letting the janitorial staff bid in the silent auction? The room erupted in knowing chuckles. Alara, pouring coffee 3 feet away, didn't react. She'd learned that stillness could be its own kind of armor. Julian said nothing. He was in the room. He heard it. He said nothing. That night, alone in her studio apartment, Alara stood in front of her bathroom mirror and studied her reflection. She was 29 years old. She spoke 4 languages fluently and could get by in 2 others. She had a master's degree in international development from Columbia that she'd paid for herself, working 3 jobs and sleeping 4 hours a night. Before Sterling and Vail, she'd spent 2 years in rural Malawi building literacy programs that were still running, still changing lives. She'd come to New York for reasons that felt important at the time. Family obligations that turned out to be quicksand. A relationship that ended the way they always did when one person wanted more than the other could give. She'd needed work, fast, the kind that paid enough to matter. Sterling and Vail had been hiring, and she'd been desperate enough to take a job she was overqualified for. 3 years of being invisible. 3 years of making herself small. She looked at the red dress hanging on her closet door. Not anymore. The night of the gala arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of September evening that felt like summer was making one last argument. Alara stood outside the Waldorf Astoria at 6:53 p.m., watching town cars disgorge their passengers, women in gowns that cost more than rent, men in tuxedos tailored to disguise middle-aged bodies, everyone moving with the easy confidence of people who'd never doubted their right to occupy space. She smoothed down the front of her dress. The fabric felt foreign against her skin, luxurious in a way that made her hyper-aware of her own body. She'd done her makeup carefully, watched YouTube tutorials, bought drugstore products that approximated what the women inside would be wearing. Her hair was pinned up, severe, elegant. She looked like she belonged. She didn't feel like it. Alara climbed the steps, handed her invitation to the attendant who barely glanced at it, and stepped into the ballroom. The air hit her first, perfume and champagne and old money, a scent that was almost visible. The space was enormous, gilded and glittering, chandeliers throwing light across hundreds of people who all seemed to know each other, who moved through conversations like choreography they'd rehearsed their entire lives. For a moment, Alara stood frozen. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, to leave, to retreat to the safety of invisibility. Then she saw Julian. He was across the room, Vivian at his side, surrounded by a cluster of men in expensive suits. He was laughing at something, head thrown back, the picture of ease. Vivian's hand was on his arm, possessive, performative. Their eyes met across the distance. Julian's laugh died. His expression shifted into something Alara couldn't name, surprise, maybe, or confusion, or the first crack in a facade he'd maintained for so long he'd forgotten it was a construction. Vivian followed his gaze. Her face went rigid. Alara felt something shift in her chest. Not courage exactly, more like the sudden absence of fear. She'd survived worse than this. She'd rebuilt herself from worse than this. She walked into the room. Conversation stuttered as she passed. She felt eyes tracking her movement, heard whispers that weren't quite quiet enough. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed nervously. The crowd parted, not out of respect but out of sheer confusion about how to react. Alara headed for the bar. She ordered a gin and tonic, paid with cash, and turned to survey the room with the drink in her hand. Marcus Chen was staring at her with his mouth slightly open. Patricia Osgood, the head of acquisitions, looked like she'd just witnessed a traffic accident. Even the waitstaff seemed uncertain, like reality had glitched. And then Vivian was there, materializing beside her with Julian in tow. "Alara." Vivian's voice could have frosted glass. "How unexpected." "You invited me," Alara said evenly. "I did, didn't I?" Vivian's smile was all teeth. "I just didn't expect you to actually come, or to wear—" She gestured vaguely at Alara's dress. "That. Is something wrong with it?" "Oh no, not at all. It's very bold, very attention-seeking, which I suppose is the point, isn't it?" Julian stood silent, his jaw working like he was chewing words he couldn't quite swallow. Alara took a sip of her drink. "I was invited to a gala. I dressed for a gala. If that's somehow inappropriate." Perhaps the invitation was poorly conceived. A flash of genuine anger crossed Vivian's face. "You know what I mean." "I really don't." "Ladies," Julian finally spoke, his voice tight. "Maybe we should—" "Oh, don't be such a diplomat, darling," Vivian cut him off. "Alara knows exactly what this is. Don't you, Alara? This whole thing, you standing here in that dress, pretending you belong. It's adorable, really, like a child playing dress-up." The conversations around them had stopped. People were watching now, not even pretending to look away. This was better than theater. This was blood sport. Alara set her glass down on a passing tray. She looked at Vivian, really looked at her, and saw something she recognized. Fear. Dressed up in cruelty and confidence, but fear nonetheless. "I'm not pretending anything," Alara said quietly. "I'm just here, the same as you." "The same as—" Vivian's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "Sweetheart, we are not the same. We will never be the same. You answer phones, you fetch coffee, you're—" "Vivian," Julian's voice had gone cold. "That's enough." "Is it?" Vivian turned to him, eyes blazing. "Is it enough? Because I think we all need to be very clear about what's happening here. This is my event, my guests, my world. And she pointed at Alara like she was evidence, doesn't belong in it." The ballroom had gone completely silent. Alara felt something in her chest that might have been rage or might have been liberation. "You're right," she said. "I don't belong in a world where cruelty is considered sophistication, where treating people as disposable is just good business, where the measure of a person is how effectively they can make others feel small." She paused. "But I was invited, so here I am." She turned to walk away, to leave before this got worse, before the trap closed completely. Then a voice cut through the silence, accented, amused. Elara Wynne? Mon Dieu, is that really you? Elara froze. She knew that voice, knew it from another lifetime, another version of herself. She turned. Laurent Devereaux was walking toward her, parting the crowd like Moses at the Red Sea, his face lit with genuine delight. He was older than she remembered, silver threading through his dark hair, but his eyes were the same, sharp and kind, and missing nothing. Laurent, Elara breathed. I cannot believe it. He reached her, took both her hands in his, kissed both her cheeks in the European fashion. How long has it been? 4 years? 5? 6, Elara said. Her mind was reeling. What are you doing here? Business. Always business. He waved a hand dismissively. I'm considering an investment in Sterling and Vale, though if I had known you were here, I would have arrived much sooner. He turned to the crowd, which was watching this exchange with the kind of fascination usually reserved for car crashes. Do you all know Elara? Of course you don't. You Americans always so focused on the wrong things. Vivian's face had gone the color of old snow. Julian looked like he'd been punched. Elara, Laurent continued, his voice carrying across the ballroom, ran the most extraordinary literacy initiative I have ever seen. We met in Malawi. I was consulting for the World Bank, and she was this young woman, barely 23, who had somehow convinced an entire region to restructure their educational approach. Do you know how difficult that is? How much cultural navigation that requires? Laurent, I don't think... Elara started. No, let me finish. This is important. He turned back to the room. She speaks how many languages now, Elara? It's not 6, Laurent answered for her. 6 languages. She built programs that are still running today, still changing lives. She turned down a position at the UN because, why was it, Elara? Family obligations, Elara said quietly. Family obligations, Laurent repeated. And now I find her here at Sterling and Vale, and I think, how fortunate for this firm. They must have recognized her brilliance immediately. They must have put her in charge of their international development division, yes? The silence that followed was deafening. Laurent's smile faded. He looked at Julian. You do have her leading your international work, don't you? Julian's mouth opened, closed. She's my executive assistant. Laurent's expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something that looked dangerously close to contempt. Your assistant, Elara Wynne, the woman who restructured educational access for over 50,000 children, who negotiated with government officials and tribal leaders and NGO directors, who speaks Chichewa and Portuguese and Mandarin. You have her answering your phones. It's a perfectly respectable position, Vivian interjected, her voice shrill. Laurent looked at her like she'd just suggested the earth was flat. Respectable. Yes, I'm sure it is. He turned back to Elara, switching to Portuguese. Tell me you're not wasting your life here. It's complicated, Elara responded in the same language. It's not complicated, it's tragic. He squeezed her hands. We need to talk. Properly. Not in this, he gestured at the ballroom. This circus. He turned to Julian. Mr. Vance, yes, I believe we have a meeting scheduled for Monday about the Singapore expansion. Yes, Julian managed. Cancel it, Laurent said flatly. I don't do business with people who mistake diamonds for gravel. He guided Elara away from the frozen tableau, toward the terrace doors, leaving behind a ballroom full of people who had just watched their entire understanding of reality get rewritten. Vivian's voice, shaking with fury. Julian, do something! But Julian just stood there, staring at the space where Elara had been, his carefully constructed world cracking like ice in spring thaw. On the terrace, Laurent was already making plans. There's a position opening in Geneva, education equity across the EU. They need someone with your background, your languages, your ability to navigate complex... Laurent, Elara held up a hand. I appreciate this. More than you know. But I can't just... Can't just what? Leave a job where they treat you like furniture? Where your talents are wasted? Where that woman, he jerked his head toward the ballroom, thinks humiliating you is entertainment? It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. He softened. What are you afraid of? Alara leaned against the terrace railing, looking out at the city lights. Failing again. Coming to New York was supposed to be temporary, a way to regroup. And then temporary became a year, became 3 years, became... She trailed off. Became this. Then change it. Just like that. Just like that, Laurent confirmed. Alara, you are 29 years old. You have already done more meaningful work than most people accomplish in a lifetime. You don't need their validation. He gestured toward the ballroom. Any of theirs. Inside, Alara could see movement. Vivian, gesticulating wildly. Julian, standing very still. Marcus Chen on his phone, probably already spreading the news. By tomorrow, everyone would know. The viral video was probably already uploading. She'd seen at least 3 phones pointed in her direction. The assistant who showed up the elite, the woman who didn't know her place, the scandal that would define Sterling and Vale's social season. I should go, Alara said. You should stay, Laurent countered. Walk back in there. Show them that their opinion means less than nothing. I'm not trying to prove anything to them. No, Laurent agreed. You're trying to prove something to yourself, so prove it. Alara looked at him, this man who'd seen her at her best, who'd believed in her when she'd barely believed in herself, who'd crossed an ocean and landed in this moment like some kind of guardian angel in an Italian suit. The Geneva position, she said. Is it real? I'll make a call tomorrow. It will be real. She nodded slowly, then she straightened her spine, smoothed down her dress, and walked back into the ballroom. The room hushed as she entered. Every eye tracked her movement. She could feel their judgment, their shock, their recalculation of who she was and what she meant. Alara walked to the silent auction tables. She bid on 3 items, a weekend in the Hamptons, a private dinner with a celebrity chef, and a collection of first edition novels. Amounts that would make her credit card weep, but would also make a point. Then she found her way to a group of junior associates who'd always been kind to her, who looked terrified and thrilled in equal measure. She joined their conversation about case law and terrible judges and the absurdity of billable hours. She laughed. She belonged to the moment. Across the room, Julian watched her like a man seeing color for the first time. Vivienne was at his elbow, hissing something, but he wasn't listening. He was watching Alara, really watching her, and seeing 3 years of assumptions disintegrate. 3 years of overlooking brilliance. 3 years of accepting someone else's definition of worth. She speaks 6 languages, he said aloud. What? Vivian snapped. She speaks 6 languages. She ran programs in Malawi. He stopped. I don't know anything about her. She's your assistant, Julian. You're not supposed to know anything about her. He looked at Vivian then, really looked at her, and saw something he'd been avoiding for months. Maybe years. The cruelty wasn't a flaw. It was the foundation. I need some air, he said. Don't you dare leave me here while... But he was already walking away toward the terrace, toward space to breathe and think and process the earthquake happening in his chest. The night spiraled on. Dinner was served, some elaborate fusion cuisine that tasted like money and looked like art. Speeches were given by people who'd never missed a meal in their lives, talking about hunger initiatives. Checks were written, deductible, and self-congratulatory. And through it all, Alara existed in a way she never had before in these spaces. Not invisible, not furniture, just herself. At 10:47 p.m., she slipped out. No goodbyes. No final confrontation. She just left, walking out of the Waldorf into the warm night, her heels in her hand, the city humming around her. Her phone buzzed, a text from Laurent. Proud of you. Call me tomorrow. Another buzz. Unknown number. She almost deleted it. Then curiosity won. The message was a link, a video, already at 200,000 views and climbing. Alara clicked it. There she was, walking into the ballroom in red. The camera caught her face. The moment she saw Julian, the moment she decided to stay. It caught Laurent's greeting, the shock on Vivian's face, the way the entire room seemed to tilt. The comments were already a war zone, half calling her brave, half calling her delusional, all of them obsessed with the narrative. Poor assistant humiliates wealthy elite. David and Goliath in designer clothes. Alara closed the video. She didn't need to read more. She walked home through the emptying streets, the dress a scarlet flag in the darkness, her mind already moving toward Monday morning, toward Sterling and Vale, toward whatever came next. Because this wasn't over. This was just the beginning of the end. When Alara arrived at the office Monday morning at 6:47 a.m., the email was already waiting. Subject line: urgent, executive meeting, your attendance required, 9 a.m. She read it 3 times. They'd never required her attendance at an executive meeting. Never. In 3 years, she'd existed outside that room, preparing materials, managing logistics, but never invited inside. This wasn't an invitation. This was an execution. Alara made coffee with shaking hands. She organized Julian's morning briefings, even though she had no idea if he'd be there to read them. She straightened her desk. She watched the clock tick toward 9. At 8:53, her phone buzzed. Julian, don't go to that meeting. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then, why not? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, just trust me. She stared at the message. Trust. From a man who'd watched her be humiliated for entertainment, who'd stood silent while his fiancée sharpened cruelty into a weapon, who'd spent 3 years not seeing her. At 8:59, Alara stood, smoothed her skirt, walked toward the conference room. She opened the door. 12 faces turned toward her, 11 hostile. 1, Julian's, unreadable. Ms. Nguyen, Marcus Chen said from the head of the table. Have a seat. Alara sat. I'm sure you know why you're here, Marcus continued. I don't, actually. The Gala, Patricia Osgood's voice was ice. Your little performance. I attended an event I was invited to. You turned it into a circus, Marcus snapped. That video has been viewed over 3 million times. 3 million. We've had clients calling, board members, investors, all asking the same question. Why is Sterling and Vale employing someone who what? Alara asked quietly. The room went still. Who embarrasses the firm? Patricia finished. I stood in a ballroom, Alara said. I spoke to a colleague. I existed in a space I was explicitly invited to occupy. If that embarrasses you, perhaps you should examine why my presence is so threatening. Your presence isn't threatening, Marcus laughed. It's inappropriate. You're an assistant, a good one, I'm sure, but still. You don't attend partner events. You don't... I was invited, Alara repeated, by Vivian Hale, in front of Mr. Vance. Neither of them objected. All eyes turned to Julian. He was staring at the table, his jaw clenched so tight Alara could see the muscle jumping. Julian? Marcus prompted. You want to clarify this? Julian looked up, looked at Alara, and in his eyes she saw something she'd never seen before. Shame. Vivian invited her, he said, to humiliate her. It was cruel, and I said nothing. The room erupted. Jesus Christ, Julian, this is exactly the kind of... We need to do damage control. Enough! Julian's voice cut through the chaos. He stood. Alara Nguyen has worked for this firm for 3 years. In that time, she has been punctual, competent, and professional. She has handled every task given to her with excellence, and we have repaid that by treating her as invisible, as less than, as someone whose only value is her ability to make our lives convenient. That's literally her job description, Patricia said. Then maybe the job description is the problem, Julian shot back. Maybe a system that takes someone with her qualifications, someone who speaks 6 languages, who ran international development programs, who has forgotten more about cross-cultural negotiation than any of us will ever know, and reduces her to answering phones is fundamentally broken. What are you saying? Marcus's voice had gone dangerous. I'm saying we're firing the wrong person. Alara's heart stopped. Excuse me. Patricia stood. You're defending her? After the embarrassment, the viral video, the damage to our reputation? What damage? Julian demanded. We're embarrassed because someone we employed turned out to be remarkable, because we were so busy being impressed with ourselves that we missed extraordinary talent sitting 3 feet away. That's not Alara's failure. That's ours. You're being emotional, Marcus said. This is about protecting the firm. No, Julian said quietly. This is about protecting our comfort. Our assumption that the world works a certain way, that people stay in their assigned boxes, that we get to decide who matters. He turned to Alara. I'm sorry for all of it, for not seeing you, for not protecting you. for being complicit in a system that, Julian, Marcus's voice was steel. You need to think very carefully about what you're saying right now. I have thought about it, Julian said, all weekend. I haven't thought about anything else. He looked back at the partners. I'm recommending Alara for a senior position, international development and client relations. She's exactly what we need for the Singapore expansion. The silence was absolute. Then Marcus laughed. You've lost your mind. Have I? Laurent Devereaux walked away from a $50 million deal because of how we treated her. How many other opportunities have we missed because we're too arrogant to recognize talent that doesn't come packaged in the right credentials? She's an assistant, Patricia repeated like it was a mantra. She's a woman we've systematically undervalued, Julian corrected. And I won't be part of that anymore. Marcus stood slowly. Then you have a choice to make, Julian. The firm or your guilt project, because this partnership doesn't have room for both. The room held its breath. Julian looked at Alara one more time, then he looked at Marcus and smiled, the saddest smile Alara had ever seen. Then I guess I choose her. He walked out. Alara sat frozen, her mind unable to process what had just happened. Around her, the partners exploded into argument, into damage control, into fury. But all she could hear was the door closing behind Julian Vance as he walked away from everything he'd built. For her. Or maybe, she thought, not for her at all. Maybe for the first time in his life, for himself. Alara didn't move from her chair. Around her, the conference room had devolved into chaos. Partners shouting over each other, phones being grabbed, someone demanding to know where the hell Julian had gone. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, watching it unfold like she was behind glass. This is insane, Patricia was saying, her voice climbing toward hysteria. He just walked out. Marcus, he can't do this. Tell me he can't do this. Marcus had his phone pressed to his ear, his face the color of old brick. Julian, pick up. Pick up the goddamn phone. He lowered it, stabbed at the screen again. Voicemail. He's sending me to voicemail. What do we do? Someone asked. Alara couldn't see who, couldn't bring herself to look away from the space Julian had occupied before he'd destroyed his life in under 3 minutes. We fix this, Marcus said, before it becomes a complete disaster. Patricia, call the board. Tell them we have the situation under control. Jesus Christ, don't tell them what Julian just said. David, start drafting a statement. Neutral, professional. Something about internal personnel matters. What about her? Patricia jerked her chin toward Alara like she was evidence at a crime scene. Alara felt 12 pairs of eyes land on her. She met them steadily. What about me? She asked. You need to leave, Marcus said. Not unkind, just final. Effective immediately. We'll process your termination paperwork, provide 2-month severance, standard non-disclosure agreement. No. The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? No, Alara repeated. She stood, smoothing her skirt with hands that only shook slightly. You're not firing me. I quit. That's not... We're offering you a generous... I don't want your severance. I don't want your non-disclosure. I want nothing from any of you except my final paycheck and my personal items from my desk. She picked up her bag. I'll be out by noon. Alara. Patricia's voice had shifted, gone careful. You're upset, understandably, but let's not be hasty. The severance package is quite... I said no. Alara turned to face her fully. You invited me to that gala to humiliate me, to remind me of my place. And when that backfired, when it turned out I wasn't just some nobody you could laugh at, you decided to eliminate the problem, fire the assistant, restore order, pretend none of this happened. She paused. But I'm not going to make it that easy. What's that supposed to mean? Marcus demanded. It means I'm walking out of here without signing anything, which means I can say whatever I want about how Sterling and Vale treats its employees, about how you use people up and throw them away, about the culture of casual cruelty you've built into the foundation of this firm. That's slander, someone said. It's truth, Alara corrected. But sure, take me to court. Discovery should be fascinating. I kept very detailed notes. The room went silent. Alara walked to the door. Her hand was on the handle when Marcus spoke again. He's not going to save you, you know. She turned back. Julian, Marcus continued, whatever romantic notion you have about him being your white knight, forget it. He had a moment of conscience. Tomorrow, when he realizes what he's thrown away, he'll come crawling back. And we'll take him back because he's valuable, because he makes this firm money, and you'll be exactly where you are now, alone, unemployed. A cautionary tale about knowing your place. Alara smiled. It felt like cracking ice. I never asked Julian to save me. I don't need saving. I needed you all to see me. Just once. As a human being with value beyond my ability to make your lives convenient. She pulled the door open. But you couldn't even manage that. So I'll save myself. She walked out before anyone could respond. Down the hall, past the cubicles where junior associates were pretending to work while obviously listening, past the reception desk where Amy, the daytime receptionist who'd always been kind, looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Alara? Amy whispered. I'm fine, Alara said. I'm leaving. If anyone asks, you don't know where I went. Did you really? At the gala? Did you? Yeah, Alara said. I did. Amy's face broke into a grin that she quickly suppressed. Good. Alara made it to her desk before her hands started shaking for real. She stood there, staring at 3 years of her life compressed into a workspace that measured 4 feet by 6. Photos she'd never put up because it felt presumptuous. Plants she'd never bought because she didn't want to seem like she was settling in. A calendar with notations in her precise handwriting. Julian's meetings, his preferences, his entire life organized by someone he'd never really looked at. She started pulling out drawers. Personal items went into her bag. A granola bar, chapstick, the good pens she'd bought with her own money because the office supply ones were garbage. Everything else stayed. The files, the notes, the institutional knowledge she'd accumulated, let them figure it out themselves. Alara. She spun around. Julian was standing there, still in his suit from the meeting, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the last 30 minutes. His tie was loosened. His hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. You shouldn't be here, she said. Neither should you. Not anymore. He glanced toward the conference room. They're going to make this ugly. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't think... I should have thought before I... He stopped, started again. I made everything worse. No, Alara said quietly. You made everything honest. Julian laughed, a broken sound. Honest, right. I just torched my career for honesty. Very noble, very stupid. Why did you do it? I don't know. He leaned against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor like a man who'd forgotten how to stand. Yes, I do. I looked at you in that meeting, and I saw 3 years of myself being exactly the kind of person I said I'd never become. And I couldn't sit there and let them do to you what I've been doing to you all along. Alara set down the photo frame she was holding, a picture of her parents, taken before everything fell apart. What you've been doing to me? Erasing you, Julian said. Making you invisible, taking everything you offered and giving nothing back, not even basic human respect. He looked up at her. You speak 6 languages. You know that now. I should have known it before. I should have asked about anything, your life, your work, why you came to New York, what you wanted. He rubbed his face. But I didn't, because it was easier to see you as a function than a person. Julian, I'm not asking for forgiveness, he cut her off. I'm trying to understand how I became this, how I turned into someone who could stand by while Vivian, he stopped. God. Vivian. As if summoned, his phone started buzzing. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen spiderwebbed but still lit up. Vivian's name flashing, call after call. She knows, Julian said. About the meeting. Someone told her. She's called 47 times. You should answer. I should do a lot of things. He stood, retrieving the broken phone. But right now, I'm going to walk out of this building and figure out who the hell I am when I'm not Julian Vance, senior partner at Sterling and Vale. They'll take you back, Alara said. Marcus was right about that. You're too valuable to lose. Probably, Julian agreed. But I don't think I want to come back. He met her eyes. Laurent Devereaux offered you a job. He mentioned a position in Geneva. Are you going to take it? Alara picked up her bag. I don't know. Maybe. I need to think. Think fast, Julian said. This city is about to eat you alive. That video, it's everywhere. Twitter, TikTok. Someone made a Reddit thread analyzing your dress. There are think pieces being written about class warfare and corporate culture. You're going to be the face of something whether you want to be or not. Then I guess I'd better decide what I want to say. They stood there, in the ruins of their old dynamic, and for the first time ever, Alara saw Julian Vance as he actually was. Not powerful, not untouchable, just a man who'd built his entire identity on a foundation of sand and was watching it wash away. For what it's worth, Julian said, I'm sorry, for all of it. I know, Alara said. And she did. She could see it in every line of his body, the weight of recognition, the cost of conscience. She walked past him, toward the elevator, toward whatever came next. Alara, Julian called. She turned. That dress, he said. At the gala. You looked... He stopped, shook his head. You looked like yourself. Finally. The elevator doors opened. Alara stepped inside. So did you, she said. For about 3 minutes. The doors closed. Alara made it to the lobby before the first reporter found her. Ms. Wynn, Alara Wynn. A man with a microphone and camera crew materialized from near the security desk. Can you comment on the video? On your relationship with Julian Vance? On allegations of workplace discrimination at Sterling and Vale? No comment, Alara said, moving toward the exit. Is it true you were fired for attending a company event? Did Julian Vance defend you in a partners meeting? Are you planning to sue? Alara pushed through the revolving doors into a wall of September heat and camera flashes. There were at least a dozen reporters, maybe more, all shouting questions, all pressing forward. She felt her breath catch, her vision tunnel. Back up, a voice said. Firm, authoritative. Give her space. Amy had followed her down. The receptionist, all 5'2" of her, was physically pushing reporters back with a ferocity that would have been funny if Alara wasn't on the verge of a panic attack. She said no comment, Amy shouted. That means no comment. Learn English. She grabbed Alara's arm and pulled her through the crowd, toward the street, toward a cab that was miraculously waiting. She shoved Alara inside and slammed the door. Go, Amy told the driver. Then to Alara, through the window. Don't come back. Whatever happens, don't come back here. The cab pulled away. Alara watched Amy disappear into the crowd of reporters, already lying. She could see it in her posture, telling them Alara had gone in a different direction, buying her time. Where to? The driver asked. Alara gave him her address, leaned back against the cracked vinyl seat, closed her eyes. Her phone started ringing. Unknown number, then another, then another. Text messages flooding in, Twitter notifications, Instagram DMs. Her privacy was being dismantled in real time. She turned the phone off. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning. A studio in Astoria that cost too much and came with cockroaches, but it was hers. She locked the door, put the chain on, and stood in the middle of the room trying to remember how to breathe normally. It didn't work. She made it to the bathroom before she threw up, knelt on the cold tile and retched until there was nothing left but bile and adrenaline. Then she sat there, back against the tub, and cried. Not delicate tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that hurt her throat and made her nose run. She cried for 3 years of making herself small, for the girl she'd been in Malawi, full of purpose and fire, for her parents, who'd needed her and taken everything until there was nothing left to give, for the relationship she'd left behind, for all the choices that had led her to a job where her greatest achievement was knowing how Julian Vance took his coffee. She cried until she was empty. Then she got up, washed her face, and turned her phone back on. The notifications were insane, hundreds of them. She ignored most, but there was one from Laurent. Call me when you can. I have news. She called. Alara? Laurent answered on the first ring. Are you all right? Define all right. Fair enough. She heard him moving, a door closing, background noise cutting out. I spoke to the director in Geneva this morning. She's very interested. Wants to set up an interview, virtually, given the circumstances. How soon can you be available? Laurent, I don't know if I can... Listen to me, he interrupted. What happened today at Sterling and Vale is going to get worse before it gets better. The story is everywhere. Vanity Fair wants a comment. The Times is running a piece on workplace culture. Someone leaked details of the partners' meeting, probably one of the junior associates. They're saying Julian Vance walked out to defend you. He did, Ilara said. Silence on the other end. Then, Mon Dieu, I didn't actually believe. Ilara, that changes things substantially. What do you mean? It means the narrative is no longer just about you. It's about him, about power, about whether someone like Julian Vance can actually change, or if this is just, what do Americans call it, performative allyship. He paused. You need to get ahead of this. Control your own story before someone else writes it for you. I don't want to control anything, Ilara said. I just want to disappear. Too late for that. You became a symbol the moment you walked into that gala. The question now is what kind of symbol? Laurent's voice softened. Or you could come to Geneva. Let the circus play out without you. Build something real while they fight over the scraps. Ilara looked around her apartment, at the life she'd built from necessity rather than choice, at the small, cramped space that had never felt like home. Send me the interview details, she said, already in your email. Thursday, 10 a.m., your time. The director's name is Margot Chen. She's tough but fair. She'll want to know why you left Malawi, why you stayed at Sterling and Vale, what you want from this position beyond escape. What do I want? That, Laurent said gently, is what you need to figure out before Thursday. He hung up. Ilara spent the rest of Monday in her apartment, watching the story metastasize across the internet. The video from the gala had 20 million views. Someone had made a TikTok compilation of her facial expressions set to Beyoncé. There were memes, think pieces, a thread on Twitter calling her the working class hero we need, even though she'd never claimed to represent anyone but herself. And then there was the other narrative, the one that made her skin crawl. Julian Vance, reformed elite, the billionaire who found his conscience, the love story angle. Because of course there was a love story angle, speculating about whether his defense of her was professional or personal, whether they were having an affair, whether this was all some elaborate publicity stunt. She wanted to scream. Instead, she drafted an email, deleted it, drafted another, deleted that too. Finally, she wrote, "To whom it may concern, I am not a symbol. I am not a hero. I am not anyone's redemption story. I am a woman who worked hard, was treated poorly, and chose to leave. That's all. Please respect my privacy. Ilara Wynne." She posted it to Twitter before she could second guess, then turned off her phone again. Tuesday morning brought a knock on her door. Ilara looked through the peephole and saw Vivian Hale standing in the hallway, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine even at 7:30 in the morning. Perfect hair, perfect outfit, perfect rage barely contained beneath a veneer of civilization. Ilara considered not answering. Then curiosity won. She opened the door but didn't remove the chain. "How did you find my address?" "I have resources," Vivian said. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." "Please." The word sounded like it physically hurt her. 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Ilara removed the chain and stepped back. Vivian walked in, looked around the studio apartment with barely concealed disdain, and perched on the edge of the futon like she might catch something. "Nice place," she said, not meaning it. "What do you want, Vivian?" "I want you to fix this." Vivian's composure cracked slightly. "This mess. This... Julian won't answer my calls. He won't come home. His mother is calling me asking what happened. The board wants a statement. The partners are in crisis mode. And it's all because of you." "It's all because of you," Ilara corrected. "You invited me to that gala to humiliate me. You wanted to prove I didn't belong. Well, congratulations. It worked, just not the way you planned." "I didn't think—" Vivian stopped, started again. "I didn't think you'd actually come, or that you'd—" She gestured vaguely. "That you'd be, what? Competent? Educated? Capable of holding a conversation? What exactly didn't you expect?" Vivian's face flushed. "Don't act like you're better than me. I'm not acting like anything. I'm just existing, which apparently is threatening enough to make you drive to Queens at 7:30 in the morning to yell at me in my own apartment." "I'm not yelling. You're getting there." Vivian stood pacing the narrow space between the futon and the kitchenette. "You don't understand. Julian and I, we have an understanding, a partnership. We make sense together. Same world, same expectations, same emptiness, Elara offered. Vivian spun around. You know nothing about my relationship. I know he hasn't touched you with any real affection in the entire time I've worked for him. I know you treat each other like business arrangements. I know whatever you have, it's not love. And what would you know about love? Vivian's voice dripped venom. You're 29 and single, living in this... She gestured at the apartment. This shoebox, working a job you're overqualified for because you couldn't make it in the real world. You think Julian sees you as anything other than a guilt project? A way to feel good about himself? The words landed. Elara felt them hit. Felt the old fears rise up, the ones that said she was exactly what Vivian described. A failure. A cautionary tale. Then she looked at Vivian, really looked, and saw the terror underneath the cruelty, the desperation, the knowledge that everything she'd built her identity on was sand. Get out, Elara said quietly. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Elara opened the door. You came here hoping to make me feel small enough that I'd disappear, make your problem go away. But I'm not your problem, Vivian. Julian is, because he looked at you, at your world, at everything you represent, and decided it wasn't enough. That must be terrifying, but it's not my fault. Vivian's eyes were wet. She blinked rapidly, refusing to let the tears fall. He'll come back when the dust settles, when he remembers who he actually is. He'll come back to me. Maybe, Elara said, but not because he wants to, because he's afraid not to. And is that really what you want? Someone who stays out of fear? Vivian walked to the door, stopped in the threshold. You didn't just ruin Julian's life, you know. You ruined mine, too. I hope you're happy. I didn't ruin anything, Elara said. I just refuse to be ruined. There's a difference. Vivian left without responding. Elara closed the door and leaned against it, her heart hammering. Her hands were shaking again. She'd stood up to Vivian Hale, actually stood up to her, and the world hadn't ended. It felt like the smallest, most significant victory of her life. Wednesday brought the fallout she'd been expecting. Sterling and Vale released a statement, corporate boilerplate about parting ways with Elara Wynne, wishing her well in future endeavors, commitment to fostering a respectful workplace. No mention of Julian, no acknowledgement of what had actually happened. The internet lost its mind. Within hours, former Sterling and Vale employees were coming forward. Testimonies about discrimination, harassment, the toxic culture that valued pedigree over competence. A paralegal who'd been fired for reporting sexual harassment. An associate who'd been passed over for promotion 17 times despite outperforming his peers. A janitor who'd worked there for 20 years and never once been invited to the company Christmas party. The firm tried to contain it, failed spectacularly. By Wednesday evening, 3 major clients had publicly terminated their contracts. The board called an emergency meeting. Marcus Chen's face was all over the news, giving interviews where he looked like a man watching his life's work crumble in real time. Elara watched it unfold from her apartment, feeling disconnected from the chaos. This was bigger than her now. The gala had been a spark, but the fuel had always been there. Years of it. Decades. She'd just been the catalyst. Her phone rang. Julian. She almost didn't answer. Then, hello? Are you watching this? His voice sounded hollow. Hard not to. It's everywhere. The firm is... Elara, they're going to collapse. The board is talking about dissolution, about cutting losses before the lawsuits start. 30 years. Everything we built. Just... He made a sound that might have been a laugh. Gone. Where are you? Elara asked. Hotel. The plaza. Hiding like a coward while the world burns. A pause. Vivian came to see you. She told you? She told me you were cruel to her, that you said terrible things, that you... He stopped. She's lying, isn't she? Ask me what actually happened. I'm asking. Elara told him, the whole conversation, Vivian's desperation, her threats, her fear. Silence on the other end. Then, Jesus Christ. She's not wrong about one thing, Elara said. I am 29 and single, living in a shoebox, running from a career I loved because I was too afraid to fail again. That's not... It is, though. I came to New York to take care of my parents. My mom was sick. My dad couldn't handle it alone. I put my life on hold for 2 years. And when she died, I was so exhausted I couldn't imagine going back, so I stayed. Took the first job that paid enough. Told myself it was temporary. She laughed bitterly. 3 years is a long temporary. Why are you telling me this? Because you're not the only one who's been hiding, Ilara said. I've spent 3 years being invisible because it was easier than being seen. Being small because it was safer than being big. And I'm done. I'm so done with safe. The interview in Geneva, Julian said. Are you taking it? I don't know yet. Probably. You should. Julian. I mean it. Get out of here. Build something real. Don't waste another second in this city watching people tear each other apart. His voice cracked. I don't know how to fix what I've done. To you, to the firm, to myself. But you don't have to stick around to watch me figure it out. What are you going to do? I honestly have no idea, Julian said, and he sounded, for the first time since she'd known him, like he was telling the complete truth. Thursday morning, Ilara sat at her laptop wearing a blazer over pajama pants and interviewed for a position in Geneva that felt like oxygen after drowning. Margot Chen was exactly as Laurent had described, sharp, unimpressed by credentials, focused on substance. She asked about Malawi, about why Ilara left, about what she'd learned from 3 years at Sterling and Vale. I learned what I don't want, Ilara said. Systems that reduce people to functions. Organizations that prioritize image over impact. Environments where cruelty masquerades as sophistication. And what do you want? Margot asked. Ilara thought about it. Really thought. Purpose. Not prestige. Work that matters beyond making wealthy people wealthier. A chance to use what I know, languages, cross-cultural navigation, program development, to actually change lives. She paused. I want to wake up and not feel like I'm wasting my potential. Margot smiled. When can you start? Friday afternoon, Sterling and Vale filed for bankruptcy. The news broke while Ilara was packing. Margot had offered her the position, starting in 3 weeks, pending work permits and relocation. Geneva. A fresh start. A chance to rebuild herself into something she'd actually choose. She was folding clothes when her phone buzzed. A text from Amy. Turn on Channel 7. Ilara grabbed her laptop, found the live stream. Julian Vance was giving a press conference. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, like he'd been awake for days. He stood at a podium outside Sterling and Vale's building, the building he'd entered every day for a decade, and read from a prepared statement that sounded nothing like corporate speak. My name is Julian Vance, he began. For the past 10 years, I have been a senior partner at Sterling and Vale. For the past 10 years, I have been complicit in building and maintaining a culture of systematic dehumanization. We hired brilliant people and reduced them to servants. We rewarded cruelty and called it ambition. We valued pedigree over competence, image over integrity, comfort over conscience. The cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Julian ignored them all. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to see this clearly for the first time. A colleague, someone I'd worked with for 3 years, was publicly humiliated at a company event by my fiancée, in front of our clients and partners. And I said nothing. I did nothing. Because it was easier to maintain the status quo than to acknowledge the rot at the foundation of everything I'd built. He looked up from his notes, directly at the camera. Ilara Wynne deserved better. Every employee who walked through our doors deserved better. And I failed them. We all did. This firm is dissolving not because of external pressure or market forces, but because it was built on a foundation of exploitation and arrogance. It deserves to fail. Someone shouted, "What about your career, your future?" Julian's laugh was sharp. I don't know. For the first time in my adult life, I genuinely don't know what comes next. But I do know this. I'm done building empires on the backs of people I refuse to see. I'm done measuring success by how effectively I can make others feel small. I'm done being the person I became. Is this about Ilara Wynne? Another reporter called. Are you in love with her? Julian's face shifted. Something raw crossed it. This is about looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person looking back. About realizing that every choice I've made for a decade has been in service of a lie. Whether that involves Ilara or anyone else is irrelevant. This is about me finally being honest. He folded his notes. I'm stepping down from every position I hold. I'm liquidating my partnership shares to fund settlements for former employees who were mistreated. And He stopped, swallowed hard. I'm trying to figure out who Julian Vance is when he's not defined by power. He walked away from the podium, didn't answer follow-up questions, just left. Alara sat on her futon, staring at the frozen image of Julian's face on her screen, and felt something crack open in her chest. Not love, not quite, but recognition of someone who'd finally stopped running from himself. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Alara Wynn? A woman's voice. Professional. Careful. Speaking. This is Rachel Mendoza. I'm a producer for 60 Minutes. We're doing a piece on workplace culture and corporate accountability. We'd like to interview you. On camera. Tell your side of the story. Alara's stomach dropped. I already gave a statement. A tweet isn't a statement, Rachel said. You've become the face of a movement whether you intended to or not. People want to hear from you. Really hear from you. Not sound bites, not speculation. Your actual experience. I don't want to be the face of anything. I understand, but Ms. Wynn, Alara, you've already changed the conversation. Sterling and Vale is gone. Julian Vance just threw himself on a sword in front of the world. Former employees are coming forward in droves. This is bigger than you now. The question is whether you want to shape that narrative or let others do it for you. Alara closed her eyes, thought about Geneva, about escape, about all the times she'd chosen safety over significance. I need to think about it, she said. We're filming Monday. I'll send you the details. If you change your mind, we'd love to have you. Rachel paused. For what it's worth, I watched that video from the Gala, and I've never seen someone dismantle condescension with such grace. That's a rare skill. The world could use more of it. She hung up. Alara sat in the silence of her apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes caught between two futures. Geneva represented purpose, peace, a chance to do the work she'd always meant to do, but New York represented something else. The possibility that running wasn't always the answer, that sometimes the hardest thing, the thing worth doing, was staying and fighting and refusing to let them write your story for you. Her phone buzzed again. Laurent. Saw Julian's press conference. Are you all right? She typed back. Define all right. 3 dots. Then, fair enough. Whatever you decide, Geneva or staying, I support you. But decide based on what you want, not what you think you should want, not what's easiest, what actually matters to you. What mattered? Alara looked around her apartment, at the life she'd accepted rather than chosen, at the boxes representing escape, at her laptop still showing Julian's frozen face, caught in a moment of absolute honesty. She thought about Malawi, about the villages where she'd watched literacy rates climb, where she'd seen kids who'd never held a book become voracious readers, where she'd built something that mattered. She thought about Sterling and Vale, about Amy, about the junior associates who'd always been kind, about all the people still trapped in systems that valued their function over their humanity. She thought about the 60 Minutes interview, about Rachel's words, shape the narrative or let others do it for you. Alara picked up her phone and sent 3 texts. To Margot, I need to delay my start date by 2 months. Is that possible? To Rachel, I'll do the interview, Monday. On one condition, you interview former employees too. This isn't just my story. To Julian, we need to talk, in person, tomorrow. Not about what happened, about what happens next. She hit send on all 3 before she could second guess. Then she sat back and waited for the world to respond. Within an hour, Margot had agreed. The position would wait. Rachel confirmed. Monday at 3 p.m. And yes, they'd already lined up 5 former Sterling and Vale employees. But Julian didn't respond. Alara tried not to read into it, told herself he was dealing with his own collapse, that he needed space, that his silence didn't mean anything. Saturday morning, she woke to pounding on her door. She stumbled out of bed, half asleep, and looked through the peephole. Julian Vance stood in her hallway looking like he'd been awake for 3 days straight. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes were red. He was holding 2 cups of coffee and a bag from the bodega downstairs. Alara opened the door. You said we needed to talk, Julian said. So let's talk. She stepped aside, let him in, took one of the coffee cups. They stood in her tiny kitchen, not quite looking at each other, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like atmosphere. "You watched the press conference," Julian said. Not a question. "Hard to miss." "I meant what I said. All of it." "I know." He set down his coffee, ran his hands through his hair. "I don't know how to do this. Any of this. I've spent my entire adult life following a script. Right schools, right job, right relationship, right everything. And now the script is gone and I—" He stopped, laughed bitterly. "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of being nobody. Of not mattering. Of looking at my life in 10 years and realizing I wasted it building the wrong things." He met her eyes. "Of becoming the person I was again because it's easier than figuring out who I actually am." Alara set down her own coffee. "You asked me what happens next. So I'll tell you, you stop performing. Stop trying to fix everything or save everyone or prove you've changed. You just exist, honestly, uncomfortably, without the armor." "That sounds horrible." "It is," Alara agreed, "but it's also the only way through." Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The 60 Minutes interview. You're doing it." "Yes." "Why?" "Because Laurent was right. I became a symbol. And if I'm going to be that, I might as well use it for something beyond myself." She paused. "I'm going to talk about systemic issues, about culture, about all the Alara wins still trapped in jobs that diminish them. And then I'm going to Geneva to build programs that actually matter." 2 months from now." 2 months from now," she confirmed. "What happens in those 2 months?" Alara smiled. "I have no idea. But I'm done planning every step, done making myself small to fit someone else's expectations. I'm just going to exist, see what happens." Julian stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes, could smell his cologne beneath the exhaustion. "Can I exist near you while we figure this out? This isn't a romance, Julian." "I know. We're not saving each other." "I know that too." "Then what is this?" He considered. Two people who've spent years being someone they're not, trying to figure out who they actually are. Together. Maybe. Alara thought about Geneva, about escape, about the safety of distance and fresh starts. Then she thought about the last 2 weeks, about walking into that ballroom, about standing up in that conference room, about choosing visibility over safety. "Okay," she said. "Maybe." Julian's shoulders dropped like he'd been holding his breath for days. "Okay." They stood there in her kitchen, drinking bodega coffee, two people at the end of everything they'd known and the beginning of something undefined. Outside, the city hummed, the internet raged, the story continued to unfold. But in that moment, in that cramped studio apartment in Queens, Alara Wynne and Julian Vance were just two humans trying to be honest. It wasn't love, it wasn't redemption, it was just the first step toward becoming real. And sometimes, that's enough. Alara's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Vivian. Julian won't answer. Is he with you?" She showed Julian the screen. He read it, and his jaw tightened. "What do you want me to say?" Alara asked. Julian took the phone, typed, "Yes, and I'm not coming back. File the paperwork. We're done." He handed it back to Alara. Hit send. Within seconds, Vivian was calling. Julian declined it, blocked the number. "That's it?" Alara asked. 3 years, and that's it? "It was never 3 years," Julian said. "It was an arrangement that stopped making sense a long time ago. I just didn't have the courage to admit it." He looked at her. "Until I did." Alara's phone buzzed again. This time, the message made her blood run cold. It was from Marcus Chen. "Whatever you think you're doing, it won't work. We have lawyers, we have resources, and we will bury you both. Enjoy your moment. It won't last." She showed Julian. His face went hard. "Let him try." "Julian, they can destroy us. Legally, financially." "With what?" Julian interrupted. "I liquidated everything. There's nothing left to take. And you've got Geneva, a new job, a new continent. What can they actually do to you?" "Make my life hell for 2 months," Alara said. "Drag this out. Turn it into a circus." "Then let them." Julian's voice was steel. "Because the alternative is backing down, disappearing, letting them win by making us afraid. And I'm done being afraid of men like Marcus Chen." He pulled out his own phone, typed something, hit send. "What did you do?" Alara asked. Forwarded his threat to my lawyer, and Rachel Mendoza, and the Times. He smiled. If they want a war, they'll get one, but it's going to be very, very public. Alara stared at him, at this man who'd been so controlled, so careful, so committed to maintaining the image, who was now burning bridges with the focus of someone who'd finally figured out which side of the river he wanted to be on. You're insane, she said. Probably, Julian agreed. But I'm done being sane if sane means complicit. Her phone rang. Rachel Mendoza. Ms. Wynne, Rachel said, I just got a very interesting email from Julian Vance. Is Marcus Chen seriously threatening you? It appears so. Can I use this? On air? Alara looked at Julian. He nodded. Yes, Alara said. Use it. Use all of it. This is going to get ugly, Rachel warned. It's already ugly, Alara said. We're just making it honest. She hung up. Julian was watching her with something like awe. Geneva is going to feel boring after this. Good, Alara said. I could use boring, but not yet. Not yet, she agreed. They spent Saturday planning, not running, not hiding. Planning. Julian contacted every former employee he could remember, offered to fund their legal fees if they wanted to sue, offered to testify, offered to burn down the entire system he'd helped build if it meant something better could rise from the ashes. Alara reached out to journalists, to activists, to people who'd been fighting these battles long before a viral video made it fashionable. She listened, learned, offered her platform as amplification rather than claiming it as authority. By Sunday evening, the narrative had shifted again. It wasn't just about Sterling and Vail anymore. It was about every firm like it, every system that ground people down and called it professionalism, every culture that valued hierarchy over humanity. Alara's phone rang at 11 p.m. Laurent. You're not coming to Geneva, are you? He said. I am, Alara insisted. Just not immediately. I need to finish this first. This being, whatever this is, this movement, this moment, this... She stopped. I don't know what to call it. Call it what it is, Laurent said. A reckoning. The question is whether you're ready for what comes after. I don't think anyone's ready for what comes after. No, Laurent agreed. But some people choose to face it anyway. That's what makes them dangerous. He hung up. Alara looked at Julian, asleep on her futon, exhausted from days of dismantling his own life. At her apartment, half-packed for a future that kept shifting. At her phone, full of messages from people who thought she had answers when really she just had questions and the courage to ask them out loud. Monday arrived with the force of an avalanche. The 60 Minutes interview was scheduled for 3 p.m., but by noon, everything had changed. 3 Sterling and Vail partners, including Patricia Osgood, had been arrested. Fraud charges. Embezzlement. Years of financial manipulation that made the culture issues look quaint by comparison. Marcus Chen was nowhere to be found. The firm that had filed for bankruptcy on Friday was now under federal investigation by Monday. And Alara Wynne was sitting in a studio in Midtown, about to go on national television, while the entire world watched Rome burn. Rachel sat across from her, reviewing notes, looking like a hunter who'd just found prey that was bigger than expected. This is bigger than I thought, Rachel said. Way bigger. Are you sure you're ready? Alara thought about the question, really thought about it. Was she ready to become the face of something she'd never asked to represent? To have her life dissected on national television? To be loved and hated in equal measure by people who'd never met her? No, but she was going to do it anyway. I'm ready, she said. The cameras turned on, and Alara Wynne, invisible for 3 years, underestimated for longer, looked into the lens and told the truth. Not her truth, not Julian's truth, not the corporate-approved version, just the truth. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a hotel room where he was watching live, Julian Vance saw her and realized something he'd been avoiding for weeks. He was in love with her, not because she'd saved him, not because she represented redemption or change or any of the narratives the internet loved, but because she was the most honest person he'd ever met. And honesty, he was learning, was the only thing worth building a life on. The interview ended. Alara walked out of the studio into chaos. Photographers, questions, people wanting statements or photos, or just proximity to the moment. She pushed through it all, toward the street, toward air. Julian was waiting at the corner. "You were brilliant," he said. "I was terrified." "That too." He fell into step beside her. "Where are you going?" "I have no idea," Elara admitted. "For the first time in my life, I genuinely have no idea what happens next." Julian smiled. "Want company while you figure it out?" Elara stopped walking, looked at him, at this man who'd lost everything and somehow found himself, who'd made every wrong choice and then chosen to make it right, who was looking at her like she was the only thing that made sense in a world gone mad. "Yes," she said. "I do." They walked together through Manhattan, two people at the point of no return, with no map and no plan, and nothing but each other and the truth. Behind them, the old world was crumbling. Ahead, something new was waiting to be built. The email arrived at 4:47 a.m. on Tuesday, 3 days after the 60 Minutes interview aired to 18 million viewers. Elara was awake, had been awake for hours, staring at her ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city waking up around her. Sleep had become theoretical. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the camera, the lights, Rachel's careful questions designed to excavate truth, her own face on the monitor, looking more vulnerable than she'd intended. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the sender, david.chen.legal@protonmail.com. Not his Sterling and Vale address, a burner email, anonymous. She sat up, heart already accelerating, opened it. "Miss Wynne, we've never met, but I was Marcus Chen's personal attorney until yesterday when I resigned. What I'm about to tell you violates privilege, my career, and possibly several laws. I don't care anymore. You need to know what you're actually dealing with. The fraud charges against the partners? Theater. Marcus orchestrated them. Threw Patricia and the others under the bus to buy himself time while he liquidates offshore accounts and disappears. The federal investigation? He's been feeding them just enough to look cooperative while hiding the real money. We're talking hundreds of millions. And Julian Vance? Check his financial records from 3 years ago, October specifically. The Malawi Initiative grant that was supposed to fund your literacy programs? It went through Sterling and Vale's International Development Fund. Julian signed off on the transfer, then he redirected it. Not all of it, just enough. $200,000 that never reached the villages. It went to a shell company he controlled. Your program collapsed because he stole from it. He's known who you were this entire time. He's been lying to you from the moment you walked into that ballroom. I have documentation, I have proof, and I'm sending it to you because you deserve to know that the man you're trusting destroyed the work you loved most. He's not your ally, he's your enemy. He always has been. Attached were 7 PDF files. Elara's hands were shaking so badly she could barely click the first one. Bank transfers, dates, account numbers. Julian's signature scanned and unmistakable on authorization forms. $200,000 diverted from Malawi Regional Literacy Initiative to something called Vance Holdings International LLC. October 2021. The same month her funding had mysteriously dried up. The same month she'd gotten the call from the NGO director saying the grants hadn't come through. The same month she'd watched her programs start to crumble because they couldn't pay teachers, couldn't buy materials, couldn't sustain what they'd built. She'd blame bureaucracy, currency issues, the chaos of international development funding. She'd never blame theft. She'd never imagined someone would steal from literacy programs in one of the poorest regions on Earth. Her stomach lurched. She barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up, violent and wrenching, until there was nothing left. She sat on the cold tile, shaking, her mind trying to process what she'd just read, trying to make it make sense, trying to find an explanation that didn't turn the last 3 weeks into an elaborate lie. Julian had known, the whole time. He'd known who she was, what she'd done, what he'd taken from her. And he'd said nothing, not at the gala when Laurent recognized her, not during the partners' meeting when he'd defended her, not in her apartment when they'd talked about Malawi, not once in dozens of conversations about honesty and truth and becoming real. He'd looked her in the eyes and lied. Her phone rang. Julian. She stared at his name on the screen, feeling something inside her turn to ice. She answered. "Morning." Julian's voice was warm, unguarded. "I know it's early, but I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about what you said yesterday, about building something that matters. I want to help. with whatever comes next. I've been looking into funding structures for October 2021, Alara interrupted. Her voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. Flat. Dead. Malawi Regional Literacy Initiative, $200,000. Silence. Then, Alara, did you steal from my programs? More silence. She could hear him breathing, could imagine his face, the calculations happening behind his eyes. I can explain, he said finally. That's not an answer. Yes. The word came out broken. Yes, I did. The bathroom tilted. Alara pressed her forehead against the cool porcelain of the sink. Why? It was before I knew you, before you worked for me. It was just another transaction. Marcus had me sign off on transfers all the time. I didn't question it. I didn't think. You stole money meant for children, Alara said. For teachers. For books. You took it and put it in your pocket, and you didn't think about it? I didn't know it would collapse the program, Julian said desperately. I didn't know that amount would matter that much. If I had known, you knew at the gala. Alara's voice was rising now, control slipping. When Laurent told everyone what I'd built, when he said my name, you knew then. You've known for 3 weeks and you said nothing. I wanted to tell you. God, Alara, I wanted to tell you so many times, but You what? You were afraid? You were protecting yourself? You were waiting for the right moment. She laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. What was the plan, Julian? Let me fall in love with your redemption story, and then what? Hope I never found out? Hope the truth stayed buried under all your noble speeches about honesty? I'm not in love with my redemption story, Julian said. I'm in love with you. The word should have meant something. A week ago, they would have meant everything. Now they just sounded like another lie. You don't love me, Alara said quietly. You love the idea of being forgiven. You love the narrative where Julian Vance sees the error of his ways and changes, where the billionaire finds his conscience and gets the girl, and everyone lives happily ever after. But you can't change without being honest, and you've been lying to me for 3 weeks. Alara, please. Those programs saved lives, Alara said. Do you understand that? Not metaphorically. Actually, we had a girl, Chisimo, 12 years old. She learned to read in our program. 2 years later, she was teaching her entire village. She's in secondary school now because of what we built. And we could have reached 10 more villages, 100 more. But we couldn't because you needed, what? Another vacation home? Another investment property? I put it back, Julian said. What? Last week. When I liquidated everything, I put the money back. 200,000 plus interest. I wired it to the NGO directly. I tried to fix it. You tried to fix it without telling me. Alara stood, her legs shaking. You tried to buy your absolution without actually confessing. That's not fixing it, Julian. That's just another version of hiding. I was going to tell you, Julian insisted, after things settled, after we had time to what? To make sure I cared about you enough that I'd forgive you? To wait until I was invested enough that I couldn't walk away? She grabbed her keys, her phone. You're exactly who you were at Sterling and Vale. You just found a better script. That's not fair. Fair? Alara's voice cracked. You want to talk about fair? I spent 3 years making your coffee. 3 years being invisible. And the whole time you knew. You knew you were the reason I was in New York instead of Malawi. You knew you were the reason my programs collapsed. You knew you'd destroyed the work I loved most. And you let me serve you coffee every single morning without saying a word. I didn't know you were you, Julian said. Well, not at first. I didn't make the connection until when? 6 months in, he admitted. I saw your resume in the HR files. Saw Malawi on there. Saw the dates. And He stopped. You did nothing, Alara finished. For 2.5 years, you knew and you did nothing. I was ashamed, Julian said. I was terrified. I thought if I could just be a good boss, if I could just... Be a good boss? Alara wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to reach through the phone and make him feel a fraction of what she was feeling. Julian, you can't be a good boss to someone whose life you destroyed. That's not redemption. That's just ongoing cruelty with better manners. Tell me how to fix this, Julian begged. Please, just tell me how to make this right. You can't, Alara said. And she meant it. She felt it settle into her bones like concrete. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too fundamental. You didn't just lie to me, Julian. You built a relationship, whatever this was, on the foundation of the worst thing you've ever done. And you thought I wouldn't find out. Who told you? Julian asked suddenly. How did you find out? Does it matter? It matters if it's Marcus, if he's trying to... It doesn't matter, Elara cut him off. It's true. That's all that matters. You did this. You stole from my programs. You've been lying for 3 weeks. Those are facts. The source is irrelevant. I'm coming over, Julian said. We need to talk about this in person, face to face. No. Elara said, I said no. She grabbed her jacket. If you show up at my apartment, I'll call the police. I'm done, Julian. With you. With this. With all of it. You can't just watch me. She hung up. For a long moment, she stood in her apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes for a future that had just imploded, trying to figure out how to breathe around the rage and grief choking her. Then she forwarded David Chen's email to Rachel Mendoza with a single line. You'll want to see this. Call me. She walked out of her apartment into the gray morning and started walking. No destination, just movement. Anything to not be still, to not think, to not feel the full weight of what she'd just learned. Her phone started ringing. Julian again. She declined it. He called back immediately. She blocked the number. Text messages started coming through from unknown numbers. His burner phones. His friends' phones. All variations of the same message. Please talk to me. Let me explain. This isn't what you think. She blocked them all. By the time she hit Central Park, the sun was up and her phone was exploding. Rachel had read the email. The Times had gotten a copy somehow, probably from David Chen directly. The story was breaking everywhere. Julian Vance's hidden betrayal. Stole funds from African literacy programs. The man who claimed redemption was lying the whole time. Elara Wynn's former programs destroyed by the man she trusted. The internet, which had spent 3 weeks canonizing Julian as the elite who found his conscience, turned on him with the fury of the betrayed. The narrative flipped so fast it gave Elara whiplash even though she was living it. Within hours, there were calls for criminal prosecution. Former Sterling and Vale employees who'd praised Julian's courage were deleting their statements. The book deal he'd been offered, because of course there'd been a book deal, was canceled. And Elara sat on a bench near Bethesda Fountain, watching it all unfold on her phone, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just hollow. Because the man she'd started to trust, to maybe even care about, was a lie. And that hurt more than anything Marcus Chen or Vivian Hale or Sterling and Vale had ever done to her. They'd been cruel, but they'd been honest about it. Julian had been kind, and it had all been performance. Her phone rang. Laurent. Tell me you didn't know, Elara said instead of hello. I didn't know, Laurent said immediately. Mon Dieu, Elara, I swear to you, if I had known Julian Vance was involved in the funding collapse, you would have told me? I would have killed him, Laurent said flatly. Those programs were everything. You built something extraordinary, and he... Laurent made a sound of disgust. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. I brought you back together, Laurent said. At the gala. I connected you. If I had known... You couldn't have known, Elara said. She was so tired. No one could have, except Julian, and he chose to keep it secret. What are you going to do? I don't know. She watched a pigeon fight over a pretzel. Geneva feels very far away right now. It's still there, Laurent said gently. Whenever you're ready. Margot called me this morning. She wanted me to tell you the position is yours, no matter what, no matter how long you need. Tell her thank you. Tell her yourself, Laurent said. When you're ready. But Elara, be careful. Marcus Chen is still out there, and now that this is broken, he's going to come for you even harder. You're the only witness who can connect the dots between the fraud and the offshore accounts. You're the only one who knows what? Laurent hesitated. Has anyone explained to you how the money actually moved? The mechanics of it? Julian signed the transfers, put it in a shell company. That's all I know. It's more complicated than that, Laurent said. Sterling and Vale used international development funds as a tax shelter. They'd get donations, claim charitable deductions, then redirect the money through multiple entities before it ended up back in partner pockets. The Malawi grant wasn't the only one. There were dozens, hundreds, over the course of a decade. We're talking about systematic fraud on a massive scale. And Julian was part of it. Julian signed the papers, Laurent corrected. But Marcus orchestrated it. Julian was a tool. A very well-paid, very complicit tool, but still, the real architect was always Marcus. That doesn't make Julian innocent. No, Laurent agreed, but it does make him useful if he testifies, if he provides documentation, if he cooperates with the federal investigation. He could take down the entire system. I don't care about taking down the system, Ilara said. I care about the fact that the man I was starting to trust destroyed my work and lied about it for 3 weeks. I understand, but Ilara, whether you care or not, you're involved now. The moment this broke, you became a key witness. The feds are going to want to talk to you. Marcus is going to want to silence you. And Julian, Laurent paused. Julian is going to want your forgiveness. He's going to try to use this as another redemption narrative. Don't let him. I won't. Promise me, Laurent insisted. Promise me you won't let him manipulate you into forgiveness before you're ready. Or ever, if you're never ready. You don't owe him absolution. I promise. They hung up. Ilara sat on the bench until the sun was high and her phone battery was at 3%. Then she walked back to her apartment, climbed the stairs, and found Julian sitting outside her door. He looked worse than she'd ever seen him. Unshaven, disheveled, eyes red like he'd been crying. He stood when he saw her. I know you said not to come, he said, but I couldn't. I had to. Get out of my hallway, Ilara said coldly. 5 minutes, please. Just give me 5 minutes to explain. Explain what? How you stole from children? How you lied for 3 weeks? How you built an entire relationship on the foundation of the worst thing you've ever done? She unlocked her door. There's nothing to explain, Julian. It's all very clear. It's not clear, Julian said desperately. The money transfer was one transaction out of hundreds. I didn't understand what I was signing. Marcus would put papers in front of me and I'd sign them. That's how it worked. I was negligent, not malicious. You're still responsible. I know that, Julian said. God, I know that. And I've been trying to make it right. I put the money back. I've been working with the NGO to restart the programs. I've donated 10 times what I stole to literacy initiatives across Africa. I'm trying to buy your way out, Ilara interrupted, to throw money at the problem until it goes away. Until I forgive you. Until the story becomes Julian Vance, flawed but redeemed, instead of Julian Vance, thief and liar. That's not, isn't it? Ilara opened her door, turned to face him fully. Every single thing you've done since the gala has been calculated. The partners' meeting where you walked out, the press conference, the liquidation of your assets. All of it was designed to look noble, to make people think you'd changed. But you can't change without being honest, and you're still lying. I'm not lying anymore, Julian insisted. I'm telling you everything. I signed those transfers. I didn't question them. I should have. I was complicit in a system that treated international development like a piggy bank. I was exactly the kind of person who makes the world worse. And I'm desperately trying to become someone different. Trying isn't good enough, Ilara said. My programs collapsed. Do you understand what that means? Teachers who were finally getting paid lost their jobs. Kids who were learning to read had their books taken away. Entire villages that were on the verge of transformation went back to 80% illiteracy because you didn't question what you were signing. I know, Julian's voice broke. I know, and I can't fix it. I can't go back and undo it. All I can do is try to make the future better than the past. And I thought, he stopped. I thought maybe we could do that together. Together, Ilara repeated. You thought we could build something together on the foundation of you destroying my life's work. You're not being fair. I'm not being... Ilara stopped, breathed, forced herself to stay calm when every instinct was screaming to rage. Julian, you stole from literacy programs. You lied to me for 3 weeks. You built a fake relationship based on fake honesty, and now you're standing in my hallway telling me I'm not being fair. Do you hear yourself? I'm in love with you, Julian said. That's not fake. That's the only real thing in my entire life right now. You don't love me, Ilara said. You love the idea of me forgiving you. You love the narrative where the woman you wronged absolves you and you get to be the hero. But I'm not your absolution, Julian. I'm not your redemption arc. I'm a person whose work you destroyed, and I will never, ever forgive you." The words hung between them like a death sentence. Julian's face crumbled. "Don't say that. Please don't." "Get out of my building," Alara said. "If you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'm calling the police and filing a restraining order." Alara, 60 seconds. She walked into her apartment and closed the door, locked it, put the chain on. Listened to Julian's footsteps recede down the hallway, slow and heavy, like a man walking to his own execution. Then she collapsed against the door and let herself cry. Not delicate tears. Ugly, wrenching sobs that tore out of her chest like they'd been buried there for years. She cried for Malawi, for Chisomo and all the other kids who'd lost their chance, for the program she'd built with her own hands and watched crumble, for 3 years of invisibility, for 3 weeks of hope, for the version of Julian she'd almost believed in. Most of all, she cried for herself, for being stupid enough to trust, for letting her guard down, for believing that people could actually change. Her phone buzzed. Rachel Mendoza. "We need to talk. Can you come to the studio? Bring your lawyer if you have one." Then Laurent. "The feds want to interview you. Don't talk to them without legal representation. I'm sending you a contact." Then an unknown number. "This is Margot Chen in Geneva. I know this is terrible timing, but we need to discuss your start date. Given the circumstances, we may need to accelerate. Call me when you can." Then Marcus Chen from yet another burner. "You've made a very serious mistake. Enjoy your moment. It won't last long." Alara stared at the messages, at the life she'd accidentally walked into, and felt the full weight of it settle on her shoulders. She wasn't just Alara Wynn anymore. She was the woman who brought down Sterling and Vale, the whistleblower, the victim, the symbol, the threat. And somewhere in Manhattan, Marcus Chen was planning her destruction. She called the lawyer Laurent had recommended, made an appointment. Then she called Rachel. "I need to do another interview," Alara said. "Tonight if possible. I need to tell the whole story, everything, before Marcus Chen can control the narrative." "Are you sure?" Rachel asked. "This is going to get very ugly. Lawsuits, depositions, possibly criminal charges against Julian. You'll be in the middle of it all." "I'm already in the middle of it," Alara said. "I might as well be honest." The second interview aired that night. Alara sat in the same chair, under the same lights, and told America about October 2021, about watching her programs collapse, about coming to New York broken and desperate, about spending 3 years working for the man who'd destroyed her dreams without knowing it, and then finding out. Rachel asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Do you think Julian Vance actually changed, or was it all performance?" Alara looked directly into the camera. "I think he wanted to change. I think he believed his own story. But wanting isn't the same as doing, and believing your own lies doesn't make them true. Julian Vance had 3 weeks to tell me what he'd done. 3 weeks to be honest, and he chose to lie every single day. That's not change. That's just better PR. Do you think he should face criminal charges?" "I think he should face the consequences of his choices," Alara said. "Whatever those are. I think everyone at Sterling and Vale who participated in the fraud should. And I think the system that made it possible, the culture that values profit over people, that treats international development as a tax shelter, that allows men like Marcus Chen to steal from the world's poorest communities, that system needs to burn to the ground." "That's a strong stance. I watched 12-year-olds lose their chance at an education," Alara said, "because rich men wanted another vacation home. You're damn right I have a strong stance." The interview went viral faster than the first one. Within hours, the Department of Justice announced a full investigation into Sterling and Vale's International Development Fund. The IRS opened an inquiry. 3 senators called for hearings, and Julian Vance's lawyer released a statement. Mr. Vance deeply regrets his role in the funding irregularities and is cooperating fully with all investigations. He takes full responsibility for his negligence and is committed to making amends. Negligence. Not theft. Not fraud. Negligence. Alara read the statement and felt something inside her turn to stone. He was already spinning it, already building the narrative where he was the flawed but repentant hero instead of the criminal. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then instinct made her pick up. "Miss Wynn?" A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. This is Agent Sarah Reeves with the FBI. We need to schedule an interview regarding Sterling and Vale's financial activities, specifically the Malawi transfers and related transactions. How soon can you make yourself available? I have a lawyer, Ilara said. You'll need to coordinate with her. Of course. But Ms. Nguyen, I need to ask you a direct question. Has Marcus Chen or anyone associated with him attempted to contact you in the last 72 hours? Ilara's blood went cold. The text messages, the threats. What threats? He said I'd made a serious mistake, that my moment wouldn't last long. Silence on the other end. Then, Ms. Nguyen, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Marcus Chen is not in the United States. He left the country Monday night on a private jet. We have reason to believe he's liquidating assets and preparing to disappear permanently. But before he does, he's tying up loose ends. You are a loose end. What does that mean? It means you're in danger, Agent Reeves said bluntly. Real danger, not legal, physical. We're arranging protective custody, but in the meantime, you need to be very careful. Don't open your door for anyone. Don't go anywhere alone. And if anyone approaches you claiming to have information or offering help, don't trust them. You think he'd actually... I think Marcus Chen has spent 30 years building an empire on fraud and theft. I think that empire is collapsing, and he knows it. And I think men like him don't go quietly. She paused. Where are you right now? My apartment. Pack a bag. Essentials only. An agent will be there in 30 minutes to move you to a safe location. Do not leave before then. Do not answer your door. Do not... The line went dead. Ilara stared at her phone. The screen showed the call had ended, not disconnected. Ended. Then she heard it. A sound from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate. She moved to the peephole. Looked out. A man stood in the hallway. Tall, professional, wearing a suit that was too expensive for this building. He was looking directly at her door like he could see through it. Her blood turned to ice. He knocked. 3 times. Polite. Patient. Ms. Nguyen? His voice was smooth, cultured. I'm here to escort you to protective custody. Agent Reeves sent me. Ilara's hands were shaking. Agent Reeves had said 30 minutes. It had been less than 2. Show me your badge, she called through the door. Of course. He held up an ID, FBI. Special Agent Michael Torres. It looked real. It looked perfect. Too perfect. Agent Reeves said you'd call first, Ilara said, before sending someone. There wasn't time. The situation escalated. We need to move now. Call her, Ilara said. Right now. In front of me. Let me talk to her. The man, Agent Torres, or whoever he actually was, smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Nguyen, you're in danger. Every second we waste. Call her or I'm calling 911. His smile disappeared. That would be unfortunate. He pulled out a phone, dialed, held it up so Ilara could see through the peephole. It rang twice. Then, Reeves. Agent Reeves, Ilara called. This is Ilara Nguyen. There's a man at my door claiming you sent him. Can you confirm? What? No, I told you someone would be there in 30 minutes. Don't open... The man ended the call. Ilara ran for her phone, dialed 911 with shaking fingers. 911? What's your emergency? There's a man trying to break into my apartment. I think he's... The door exploded inward. Not picked, not unlocked, kicked. The chain snapped, wood splintered. The man stepped into her apartment holding a gun with a silencer attached. Hang up the phone, Ms. Nguyen. Ilara threw it at him. He dodged easily, raised the gun. Marcus Chen sends his regards. Time slowed. Ilara saw her life compress into a single moment. All the choices that had led here. Coming to New York, taking the job at Sterling and Vale, attending the Gala, trusting Julian, doing the interviews. All of it leading to this moment. To a man with a gun in her apartment. To the knowledge that she was about to die for the crime of telling the truth. The apartment door crashed open a second time. Julian Vance tackled the gunman from behind. They went down hard, the gun skittering across the floor. Ilara dove for it, her hands closing around cold metal. She'd never held a gun before, didn't know how to use it, didn't matter. She pointed it at the two men struggling on her floor and screamed, "Stop! Both of you stop!" They froze. The gunman's face was bloody. Julian was on top of him, breathing hard, his eyes wild. "Alara," Julian gasped. "Call the police. Real police. Now." "You," Alara said to Julian, her hand shaking so badly she could barely keep the gun steady. "How did you know he was here?" "I was outside," Julian said. "I've been outside your building since you kicked me out. I saw him come in. Recognized him from Marcus's security detail. I followed. You've been stalking me?" "I've been protecting you," Julian corrected. "And it's a good thing I was, because he was about to—" The gunman moved, fast, faster than either of them expected. He threw Julian off, lunged for Alara. She pulled the trigger. The gun kicked in her hands. The sound was deafening, even with the silencer. The man went down, clutching his shoulder, screaming. Alara stood frozen, the gun still raised, her mind unable to process what had just happened. She'd shot someone. She'd actually shot someone. Julian was on his feet, taking the gun from her nerveless fingers. "It's okay. You're okay. He's not dead. You're okay." But she wasn't okay. She was standing in her destroyed apartment, surrounded by broken wood and blood and the wreckage of her life, and nothing was okay. The police arrived. Real police. Then FBI, then paramedics. The apartment filled with people asking questions Alara couldn't answer because her ears were ringing and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Agent Reeves appeared, looking furious and frightened. "Are you hurt?" "No," Alara managed. "The shooter?" "Shoulder wound. He'll live." Reeves looked at Julian. "And you are?" "Julian Vance," Julian said quietly. "I was outside when he arrived. I followed him up." "You were outside Mrs. Wynn's building," Reeves said slowly. "Why?" "Because I knew Marcus would come for her," Julian said. "And I—" He stopped, looked at Alara. "I couldn't let that happen." "You knew Marcus Chen would send someone to kill her," Reeves repeated. "And you didn't think to alert the authorities?" "I called you," Julian said, 40 minutes ago. I left a message saying Alara was in immediate danger and you needed to move her to protective custody immediately." Reeves pulled out her phone, checked. Her face went pale. "We didn't get it. The message didn't—" She stopped. "Someone intercepted it. Marcus has people everywhere," Julian said, "in the FBI, in NYPD, in every agency investigating him. That's how he's stayed hidden this long. You can't protect her, not through official channels." "And you can?" Reeves asked. Julian met her eyes. "I know Marcus Chen better than anyone alive. I know how he thinks, how he operates, who he owns. If you want to keep Alara alive, you need me." "I don't need you," Alara said. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I don't want anything from you ever again." Julian flinched like she'd hit him. "Alara, you destroyed my life," she said. Each word was a stone. "You lied to me. You stole from me. And now you're trying to play hero because a man you worked with for a decade sent someone to kill me. You don't get to save me, Julian. You don't get redemption. You get nothing." "Then let me get you nothing somewhere safe," Julian said quietly. "Please, let me do this one thing, and then I'll disappear. I'll give you whatever you want. Testimony, evidence. I'll cooperate with every investigation. I'll plead guilty to whatever charges they bring. But first, let me get you somewhere Marcus can't reach." Agent Reeves looked between them. "Miss Wynn, I hate to say this, but he's right. We can't protect you. Not adequately. Not with Marcus's connections. But if Mr. Vance is willing to cooperate—" "No," Alara said. "Alara," Reeves said gently, "that man came here to kill you. Marcus will send others, better ones. You need to disappear until we can arrest him, and Mr. Vance knows how to disappear in ways we don't." Alara looked at Julian, at the man who destroyed her dreams and was now trying to save her life, at the impossible choice in front of her: trust the person who'd betrayed her or die holding on to her principles. "If I agree to this," she said slowly, "you stay away from me. You don't talk to me. You don't try to explain or apologize or redeem yourself. You keep me alive and then you disappear from my life forever. Can you do that?" Julian's face was ashen, but he nodded. "Yes, I can do that." "Then fine," Alara said. "Get me out of here, and then stay out of my life." She walked out of her ruined apartment without looking back, following Julian Vance into an uncertain future. hating him and needing him in equal measure. Behind them, Agent Reeves made a call. "We've got a problem. Chen's reach is deeper than we thought. I need a full internal investigation, and I need it yesterday." In a luxury hotel suite somewhere in Dubai, Marcus Chen watched the news coverage of the shooting at Ilara Wynn's apartment and smiled. The first attempt had failed, but he had others, and sooner or later, everyone who threatened his empire would learn the same lesson. You don't cross Marcus Chen and live to tell about it. Somewhere over the Atlantic, in a private jet heading to an undisclosed location, Ilara Wynn sat as far from Julian Vance as the cabin allowed and tried to figure out how her life had become an action thriller when all she'd wanted was to teach children to read. Outside the window, the sun was setting. Inside, the silence between them felt like the end of the world. The safe house was in rural Vermont, buried so deep in the woods that even the GPS gave up halfway there. Julian had driven in silence for 8 hours straight, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel, while Ilara stared out the window and tried not to think about the man she'd shot, about the blood, about how easy it had been to pull the trigger. They arrived just after midnight. The house was small, isolated, surrounded by trees that looked black against the moonless sky. No neighbors, no cell service, no connection to the world they'd left behind. Julian killed the engine. Neither of them moved. "There's food inside," he said finally. "Generator for power, satellite phone for emergencies only. The property is owned by a shell company that doesn't trace back to me or Sterling and Vale. Marcus won't find you here." "How long?" Alara's voice was hoarse from not speaking. "Until the FBI arrests him. Could be days, could be weeks." "And you?" Julian's jaw tightened. "I'll stay in the barn. There's a converted loft. You won't even know I'm here." "Good." They got out. Julian carried the bags, her hastily packed essentials, his single duffel that somehow contained everything he owned now. The house smelled like wood smoke in disuse. Julian turned on lights, checked the generator, showed her where everything was with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "Have you used this place?" Ilara asked. "Before. Once," Julian admitted. 3 years ago. When a deal went bad and someone threatened to... He stopped. "Doesn't matter. Point is, it's secure. Because you needed a place to hide from the consequences of your own actions." Julian absorbed the blow without flinching. "Yes." He showed her the bedroom, clean sheets, locked windows, a landline that connected to a secure network. Then he grabbed his duffel and headed for the door. "Julian?" He turned. "Thank you," Ilara forced out, "for saving my life. I hate you, but thank you." Something broke behind his eyes. "You're welcome." He left. Ilara locked the door behind him, sat on the bed, and finally let herself fall apart. Not crying. Something worse. A full-body shake that made her teeth chatter, made her vision blur, made her curl into a ball and hold herself because there was no one else to do it. She'd shot a man. It almost died. And now she was trapped in the middle of nowhere with the person she hated most in the world as her only protection against the person who wanted her dead. This was not how redemption stories were supposed to go. Morning came too bright and too early. Ilara woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came crashing back. She found Julian in the kitchen, making breakfast like this was normal. Like they were normal. "Don't," she said. He looked up from the eggs he was scrambling. "Don't what?" "Don't pretend we're friends. Don't make me breakfast. Don't act like this is anything other than what it is. You keeping me alive so you can feel less guilty about destroying my life." Julian set down the spatula. "You're right. I'm sorry. There's coffee. Help yourself. I'll eat outside." He took his plate and left before she could respond. Ilara poured coffee with shaking hands and hated that it was exactly how she liked it. That he remembered. That even now, after everything, he paid attention to details about her. She ate alone, staring out at the woods, and tried to figure out her next move. The FBI wanted her testimony. Geneva wanted her to start work. Marcus Chen wanted her dead. And Julian wanted absolution she would never give. The satellite phone rang at 10 a.m. Agent Reeves. "Miss Wynn, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Marcus Chen gave an interview from Dubai. It's airing tonight on international news. He's claiming you and Julian conspired to frame him, that the fraud investigation is retaliation for his refusal to approve your relationship, that you stole documents from Sterling and Vale to fabricate evidence. Alara's grip tightened on the phone. That's insane. It's also effective, Reeves said. His lawyers are filing defamation suits against you, Julian, and the Times. They're painting you as a disgruntled employee with a vendetta. And without Marcus in custody, we can't disprove it fast enough to matter. So what do I do? You stay hidden, Reeves said firmly. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let us handle it. We're building a case, but it takes time. In the meantime, you need to trust the process. The process almost got me killed, Alara said. I know, and I'm sorry. But running toward this won't help. It'll just make you a bigger target. Reeves paused. How are things with Vance? He's alive. I'm alive. That's the extent of our relationship. He's cooperating with us. Fully. He's given us access to files we didn't even know existed. Banking records, communication logs, everything. He's basically committing career suicide to help us build the case against Marcus. Good for him, Alara said flatly. He should have done it 3 years ago. Maybe, Reeves agreed, but he's doing it now. That has to count for something. It doesn't, Reeves sighed. Stay safe, Miss Wynne. I'll call if anything changes. The line went dead. Alara walked outside, found Julian chopping wood near the barn, his shirt soaked with sweat despite the cool morning. He'd clearly been at it for hours. The pile of split logs was enormous. Reeves called, Alara said. Julian buried the axe in a stump and turned to face her. What did she say? Marcus is doing interviews claiming we framed him, that this is all fabricated. Of course he is. Julian grabbed a towel, wiped his face. He's controlled the narrative his whole life. He's not going to stop now just because the truth is catching up. Can he win? Alara asked. Can he actually make people believe we're the villains? He can try. Julian's voice was grim. Marcus has resources we can't imagine. Lawyers, PR firms, politicians in his pocket. He spent 30 years building protection. It doesn't evaporate overnight just because the FBI opened an investigation. So we just hide here while he destroys our reputations? We stay alive, Julian corrected. Reputations can be rebuilt. Being dead is permanent. Easy for you to say. You already destroyed your reputation. You have nothing left to lose. I have you to lose, Julian said quietly. Alara's laugh was sharp. You lost me the moment you signed those transfer papers. You just didn't know it yet. She walked away before he could respond. Spent the afternoon pacing the small house, feeling like a caged animal, checking the satellite phone every 10 minutes, even though she knew Reeves would call if there was news. Evening brought the interview. Julian had a small TV in the main room, connected to a satellite dish. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, not looking at each other, and watched Marcus Chen dismantle their lives with surgical precision. He looked good, rested, confident, sitting in what appeared to be a luxury hotel suite, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. The interviewer was sympathetic, asking softball questions that Marcus answered with rehearsed sincerity. These allegations are deeply painful, Marcus said, his voice smooth as oil. I dedicated my life to building Sterling and Vale into a force for good. We created jobs. We funded initiatives. We made a difference. And to have that legacy attacked by 2 individuals with a personal vendetta, it's heartbreaking. You're referring to Alara Wynne and Julian Vance, the interviewer prompted. I'm referring to a complex situation that's been grossly oversimplified, Marcus said. Ms. Wynne was a valued employee. When she and Mr. Vance began an inappropriate relationship, I counseled them both about the ethical implications. They didn't want to hear it. And when Mr. Vance's engagement to Ms. Hale became public, Ms. Wynne felt scorned. I understand that. Workplace relationships are complicated. But to then fabricate criminal charges, to steal confidential documents, to destroy an entire firm because of hurt feelings, that crosses a line. You're saying they made it all up? The interviewer asked, trying to sound skeptical but failing. I'm saying the truth is more nuanced than the viral videos suggest, Marcus replied. Were there accounting irregularities, perhaps? But that's a far cry from systematic fraud. And the allegations about the Malawi programs, he shook his head sadly. Those funds were redirected due to currency instability and regional conflicts. We have documentation, we have explanations, but Ms. Wynne chose to interpret standard financial procedures as theft because it fit her narrative. "He's lying," Alara said. Her voice shook with rage. "Every word is a lie." "I know," Julian said. "We have to do something. We have to respond. We can't just sit here and let him—" "What do you want to do?" Julian asked. "Call into the interview? Post a Twitter thread?" "None of that reaches his audience. He's on international news because he has the resources to get there. We don't." "Then we get resources. How?" Julian turned to face her fully. "I liquidated everything. You're in hiding. The FBI told us to stay quiet. What resources do you think we have?" "We have the truth," Alara said. "The truth doesn't matter when the lie is better funded," Julian said bitterly. "That's what I learned at Sterling and Vale. The person with the best story wins. Facts are optional." "I don't accept that." "You don't have to accept it, but it's still reality." Alara stared at the TV, where Marcus was now talking about his charitable work, his dedication to international development, his shock that former colleagues would attack him so viciously. He was good, terrifyingly good, making himself the victim, making them the villains. "He's going to win," Alara said. "Isn't he?" "Not if the FBI arrests him," Julian said. "Not if we can prove—" "But what if we can't?" Alara interrupted. "What if he stays in Dubai forever? What if his lawyers drag this out for years? What if he dies before he ever faces consequences?" Julian didn't answer, because they both knew it was possible. Justice delayed was justice denied, and men like Marcus Chen were experts at delay. The interview ended with Marcus looking directly into the camera. "To Miss Wynne and Mr. Vance, if you're watching, I forgive you. I hope you find peace. And I hope that someday you'll be able to tell the truth about what really happened." The screen went dark. Alara threw the remote across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. "That felt good," Julian observed. "Shut up." "I'm just saying—" "I said shut up." Alara stood, pacing like a trapped animal. "We need to do something, anything. I can't just sit here while he—" The satellite phone rang. They both froze. Alara grabbed it. "Hello? Ms. Wynne?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "My name is Thomas Whitmore. I'm an investigative journalist with The Guardian. I've been tracking Marcus Chen's financial activities for 2 years. I have documentation of fraud that predates your employment at Sterling and Vale by a decade, and I'd like to meet with you to compare notes." "How did you get this number?" Alara asked. "I have sources inside the FBI. They thought we should talk. Can you meet me?" "I'm in protective isolation." "I know. Vermont, the Delacroix property." Whitmore's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "I can be there in 4 hours. Bring everything you have. I think together we can build something the lawyers can't bury." Alara looked at Julian. He was shaking his head violently, mouthing, "No, trap." "How do I know you're who you say you are?" Alara asked. "Check my byline. I broke the Panama Papers story, the FIFA corruption case. I don't work for Marcus Chen. I work for the truth. And right now, the truth needs help." 4 hours, Alara said. "But I verify your identity before you get anywhere near this house." "Understood. I'll send you my credentials. Verification codes. Whatever you need." He paused. "Ms. Wynne, I watched that interview. Marcus is good, but he's not invincible. We can beat him, but only if we work together." He hung up. "That was a trap," Julian said immediately. "Marcus knows we're in Vermont. He sent someone to— To what? Talk to us about documentation? That's a weird assassination method." "Alara, think about it. A journalist who just happens to have our location? Who calls right after Marcus's interview airs? Who wants to meet in person instead of doing this remotely?" "Or," Alara countered, "he's exactly who he says he is. Someone who's been investigating Marcus and sees an opportunity to finally take him down." "It's too convenient." "Everything about this situation is convenient or inconvenient, depending on your perspective," Alara shot back. "What I know is that sitting here doing nothing while Marcus destroys us isn't working, so either we take a risk or we accept defeat. Your choice." "It's not my choice," Julian said. "It's your life." "If this is a trap, then you save me again," Alara interrupted. "That's what you're here for, right? Redemption through protection? So protect me." She pulled out the laptop Julian had brought, started searching for Thomas Whitmore, found his byline. Articles dating back 15 years. Investigative journalism, breaking major corruption cases. Pulitzers. Credentials that looked legitimate. He's real, Ilara said, showing Julian the screen. Or Marcus is thorough, Julian countered. Fake identities aren't hard when you have unlimited resources. Nothing is certain, Ilar said, but I'm not spending the rest of my life hiding in the woods while Marcus Chen wins. So I'm meeting with Whitmore. You can help, or you can stay in the barn. Your call. Julian stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his own phone, a burner he'd picked up at a gas station during their drive. Started making calls. What are you doing? Ilara asked. Calling in favors, Julian said. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I know people who can verify Whitmore's identity. I know people who can provide security. I thought you liquidated everything. I liquidated my money, Julian corrected. I still have relationships, people who owe me, people who believe I'm trying to make things right. He paused. People who are better than I deserve. He made 4 calls, each one short, clipped, asking for verification or backup, or both. By the time he was done, he had confirmation that Thomas Whitmore was real and 3 former Sterling and Vale security personnel on their way to Vermont to provide protection. They'll be here in 2 hours, Julian said. We set up a perimeter. We verify Whitmore before he gets close. And if anything seems off, anything at all, we abort and disappear again. Agreed, Ilara said. They spent the next 2 hours preparing. Julian turned the safe house into a fortress, checking sight lines, securing entry points, setting up early warning systems with his phone, and some tripwires made from fishing line he found in the barn. Ilara organized documents, printed screenshots from David Chen's emails, compiled everything that proved the fraud. When the security team arrived, 3 men who looked like they'd been military before they were corporate, Julian briefed them with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. They spread out around the property, invisible but present. Whitmore arrived exactly on time, 4 hours after his call. He came alone, driving a rental sedan, hands visible through the windshield. Julian met him at the end of the long driveway, gun in hand but not raised. ID press credentials, phone. Whitmore handed them over without argument. I understand the caution. Marcus Chen has a long reach. That's what we're counting on you to shorten, Julian said. He verified the ID against photos he'd pulled online, checked the press credentials against the Guardian's database, scrolled through Whitmore's phone, mostly encrypted messaging apps and research documents. Clean, Julian said into his own phone. To Whitmore, you can approach the house, but my people stay on site. Anything goes wrong, you don't leave. Fair enough? Whitmore was 50-something, gray-haired with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much corruption and not enough justice. He carried a messenger bag that Julian searched thoroughly before allowing him inside. Ilara was waiting in the living room, surrounded by printouts and laptop screens. She didn't stand when Whitmore entered. Ms. Wynne, Whitmore said, thank you for seeing me. Show me what you have, Ilara said, before I show you anything. Whitmore smiled. Smart. He pulled out his own laptop, opened encrypted files. I've been tracking Marcus Chen since 2019. Started with a tip about offshore accounts. Found systematic fraud across Sterling and Vale's international division. We're talking about hundreds of millions siphoned through shell companies over 15 years. The Malawi program was just one piece. There were similar schemes in Cambodia, Guatemala, Kenya, anywhere Sterling and Vale claimed to be doing development work. He showed them spreadsheets, account transfers, corporate documents with Marcus's signature. A web of financial manipulation so complex it made Ilara's head spin. Why didn't you publish this? Julian asked. No smoking gun, Whitmore said. Everything was technically legal if you squinted hard enough. Shell companies aren't illegal. Redirecting charitable funds through multiple entities raises questions, but isn't automatically fraud. I needed someone with inside knowledge, someone who could testify to intent, to the systematic nature of it. He looked at Ilara. Then you happened. The gala, the video, the 60 Minutes interview. Suddenly, I had a human face to attach to the numbers, and David Chen's leak gave me the documentation I'd been missing. David Chen was your source, Ilara said. One of them, Whitmore confirmed. Marcus's own attorney. Turns out even lawyers have limits to what they'll tolerate. When Marcus ordered your death— Wait, Julian interrupted. David Chen knew about the hit? He facilitated it, Whitmore said grimly. Gave the shooter your address, provided building access codes. Then had a crisis of conscience and started leaking everything he could get his hands on before he disappeared. Where is he now? Alara asked. Witness protection. If he testifies, Marcus goes to prison for life. But that's a big if. David is terrified. He's seen what Marcus does to people who betray him. So have I, Alara said quietly. I shot one of them. I know, which is why we need to move fast. Marcus knows you're still alive. He knows his first attempt failed. He'll send others, better ones, more careful ones. Our only advantage is speed. If we can publish the full story, your testimony, David's documents, my research, before Marcus can suppress it, we create public pressure the authorities can't ignore. How fast are we talking? Julian asked. 72 hours, Whitmore said. I need to verify your documents. You need to verify mine. We write the story together. Then we publish simultaneously across The Guardian, The Times, and 3 other international outlets. We flood the zone before Marcus's lawyers can file injunctions. By the time they shut down one outlet, the story is already everywhere. And if it doesn't work, Alara asked, then we've made ourselves even bigger targets, Whitmore admitted. But at least the truth will be out there. At least we'll have tried. Alara looked at Julian. For the first time in days, they were on the same page, both calculating the risk, both knowing it was probably suicide, both understanding they didn't have a choice. 72 hours, Alara said. Let's burn him down. They worked through the night. Whitmore was meticulous, verifying every document, cross-referencing every claim, building a case that would stand up to the armies of lawyers Marcus would throw at it. Alara walked him through the Malawi programs, how they worked, what they needed, how the funding collapse had destroyed them. Julian provided internal Sterling and Vale documents that showed the systematic nature of the fraud. By dawn, they had a story that was bulletproof. This is it, Whitmore said, looking at the draft on his screen. This is career-ending, life-ending for Marcus. The moment we publish, there's no going back. Good, Alara said. Send it. Not yet, Whitmore said. I need to coordinate with the other outlets, make sure everyone publishes simultaneously. And I need you both to prepare for what comes next. The moment this goes live, every news organization on Earth will want interviews. Marcus's lawyers will file suits. The FBI will want statements. Your lives will become chaos. They're already chaos, Julian said. This is different, Whitmore insisted. Right now, you're victims, sympathetic. Once we publish this, you become warriors, attackers. The narrative shifts. Some people will love you for it. Others will hate you. You need to be ready. I'm ready, Alara said. Whitmore looked at Julian. And you? I've already lost everything, Julian said. What's a little more? Your freedom, Whitmore said bluntly. These documents show you were complicit in the fraud, not just the Malawi transfer. Multiple transactions over 3 years. The FBI will want to prosecute. You'll likely face charges. I know, Julian said. I've already told Agent Reeves I'll plead guilty. I'll testify against Marcus. I'll cooperate fully, but I want immunity for Alara. Complete immunity. She had nothing to do with any of this. I don't need you negotiating for me, Alara snapped. I'm not negotiating, Julian said. I'm confessing and making sure you don't get dragged down with me. How noble, Alara said coldly. The thief falls on his sword to protect the woman he wronged. Very cinematic. It's not about being noble, Julian said. It's about being honest. Finally, completely. No matter what it costs. They stared at each other across the room, all the anger and hurt and betrayal hanging between them like smoke. Whitmore cleared his throat. I'll give you two a moment. I need to make some calls anyway. He stepped outside. The silence stretched. I'm sorry, Julian said finally. For all of it. For stealing from your programs. For lying. For building a relationship on the foundation of the worst thing I've ever done. I'm sorry. And I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't change what I did. But I need you to know I would undo it all if I could. Every signature, every transaction, every moment of cowardice. If I could go back and be the person I should have been, I would. But you can't, Alara said. No, I can't. All I can do is be honest now and accept the consequences. Prison, Alara said. Probably. You'll lose your license, your career, everything. I already lost everything that mattered, Julian said quietly. The moment I saw your face in that conference room and realized what I'd done, who I'd become, I lost myself. Everything after that has just been trying to find a way back. And have you? Alara asked. Found your way back? Julian considered. I don't know, but I'm trying. Every day. Even when you hate me, especially when you hate me, because your hatred is honest. It's the most honest thing in my life right now. Alara felt something crack in her chest. Not forgiveness, not even close, but maybe understanding that people were capable of terrible things and genuine remorse, that both could be true simultaneously. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, she said. I don't expect you to. But I'm glad you saved my life, and I'm glad you're doing this. The testimony, the confession, the truth. She paused. It doesn't make us even. It doesn't erase what you did. But it's something. It's a start, Julian said. Maybe. Whitmore came back inside. We're ready. Publishing in 6 hours. Coordinated across all outlets. I've arranged for you both to do interviews immediately after. Separate interviews. They want your story, Miss Wynne, the woman who brought down an empire. And they want yours, Mr. Vance, the insider who turned on his own. Then let's give them a show, Alara said. The next 6 hours were a countdown to detonation. Whitmore made final edits. Julian coordinated with Agent Reeves, arranging his surrender and proffer of testimony. Alara prepared herself mentally for the storm that was coming. At exactly 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the story went live. Empire of Fraud. How Sterling and Vale Stole Millions from International Development Programs. The Guardian's homepage. The Times. Le Monde. Der Spiegel. All simultaneously. Thousands of words. Hundreds of documents. Testimony from Alara, from Julian, from David Chen, from former employees. A comprehensive dismantling of everything Marcus Chen had built. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Within an hour, Sterling and Vale's remaining partners were being arrested. Within 2 hours, Interpol had issued a warrant for Marcus Chen's arrest. By evening, the story was everywhere. Every news channel, every website, every social media platform. The scale of the fraud was so massive, so systematic, so brazen that it dominated every conversation. And in Dubai, Marcus Chen watched his empire crumble in real time. He made one phone call, to a number he'd hoped never to use. She's in Vermont, the Delacroix property. I want everyone you have. I want it done tonight. I want her to disappear so completely that no one ever finds the body. That'll cost extra, the voice on the other end said. Given the attention she's getting. I don't care what it costs, Marcus said. Just end her. He hung up and poured himself a drink, watched the news coverage of his own destruction, and smiled. Because Alara Wynne had made one fatal mistake. She'd assumed Marcus Chen cared about winning. He didn't. He cared about revenge, and if he was going down, he was taking her with him. In Vermont, Alara finished her 5th interview of the day and collapsed on the couch. Julian brought her water without being asked. You were brilliant, he said. I was honest, Alara corrected. There's a difference. Not today, Julian said. Today, they were the same thing. The satellite phone rang. Agent Reeves. Ms. Wynne, we have a situation. Intercepts picked up chatter. Marcus made a call. We couldn't get the full conversation, but we got enough. He's sending people. Multiple teams. They're coming for you tonight. Alara's blood went cold. How many? We don't know, but enough that we need to evacuate you immediately. We have a helicopter en route. ETA 40 minutes. Pack essentials only. We're moving you to a federal facility. What about the security team Julian hired? They're not equipped for this, Reeves said. Marcus is sending professionals. Military grade. You need to leave now. Alara looked at Julian. He'd heard the whole conversation. His face had gone pale. 40 minutes, he said. That's not enough time if they're already on their way. As if on cue, the first explosion rocked the house. The east window blew inward, glass and fire and concussive force that threw Alara across the room. She hit the floor hard, ears ringing, tasting blood. Julian was on top of her, shielding her with his body. Stay down! Gunfire erupted outside. The security team engaging, Screams, more explosions. Julian pulled her to her feet, dragged her toward the back of the house. The tunnel. There's an old root cellar with an exit to the woods. We go now. They ran. Behind them, the house was burning. The front door crashed open. Footsteps. Voices coordinating in sharp professional tones. Julian threw open the cellar door, pushed Alara down the stairs. They were in darkness, surrounded by earth and the smell of decay. Julian fumbled for a flashlight, found it, illuminated a narrow tunnel that led into blackness. Go, he said. Run. Don't stop. The tunnel exits a quarter-mile into the woods. There's a vehicle hidden there, keys in the visor. Drive to the coordinates I'm about to give you. Don't stop for anything. What about you? Alara asked. I'm going to slow them down. Julian, they want you dead, Julian said. His voice was steady, calm, resolved. They need to go through me to get to you. So that's what's going to happen. No, Alara said. We go together, or we don't go at all. Alara? I said no. She grabbed his arm. You don't get to die for me. You don't get to make yourself the hero. We survive together or we don't survive. That's the deal. Above them, footsteps on the floor, someone shouting orders. The sound of the cellar door being located. Julian looked at her, really looked, and saw something he'd been missing for weeks. She wasn't asking him to save her. She was asking him to fight beside her. Together, he said. Together, she confirmed. They ran into the tunnel as the first bullets tore through the cellar door above them. The tunnel was older than the house above it, carved from earth and reinforced with rotting timbers that groaned under the weight of soil and time. Alara's lungs burned as she ran, the flashlight beam bouncing wildly ahead of them, illuminating roots and rocks, and the narrow passage that seemed to go on forever. Behind them, voices echoed, footsteps on wooden stairs. Someone had found the cellar entrance. Faster! Julian gasped. His hand was on her back, pushing her forward even as his own breath came in ragged bursts. The tunnel curved sharply left. Alara's shoulder hit the dirt wall, sending a cascade of loose earth down her shirt. She stumbled, caught herself, kept running. Her mind was pure survival instinct now. No room for fear or analysis or anything beyond the next step, the next breath, the next moment of staying alive. A gunshot cracked behind them. The bullet hit somewhere in the tunnel, sending splinters of wood exploding outward. Too close. Way too close. They're in the tunnel, Alara said. I know. Julian's voice was tight. 20 more yards. There's a fork. We go right. They'll expect us to go straight. It buys us maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds to do what? Survive. They hit the fork. Julian yanked her right, into a passage so narrow they had to turn sideways to fit. The flashlight scraped against rock. Alara could feel the walls pressing in, could taste dirt and panic, and the metallic tang of her own blood from where she'd bitten her tongue. Behind them, their pursuers reached the fork, voices arguing about which direction. Then footsteps heading straight. The wrong direction. Julian was right. They'd bought 30 seconds. How much farther? Alara whispered. 100 yards? Maybe less. There's a ladder, straight up, leads to a hidden exit under a rock formation. They emerged into a slightly wider chamber. The ladder was there, ancient iron rungs bolted into stone, disappearing up into darkness. Julian tested the first rung. It held. You first, he said. I'll cover the tunnel entrance. Julian? No arguments. Go, fast as you can. When you get to the top, there's a false rock you push aside. The vehicle is 50 yards due north. Gray Land Rover. Keys in the visor, like I said. And you? Right behind you. Alara looked at him. At this man who'd destroyed her life and was now risking his own to save it. At the contradiction of Julian Vance, capable of terrible cruelty and genuine sacrifice in the same breath. If you die down here, she said, I'm going to be really angry. Julian's smile was brief and sad. Then I better not die. Alara climbed. The rungs were slick with moisture and age. Twice her foot slipped. Twice she caught herself on pure instinct and terror. Above her, the shaft seemed endless. Below, she could hear Julian's breathing, could feel his presence even in the darkness. Then she heard other footsteps. Their pursuers had figured out the fork. Were coming back. Alara, faster! Julian called up. She climbed faster, Her muscles screamed. Her hands were bleeding from gripping the rusted metal. Didn't matter. Only mattered that she reached the top before the bullet started flying again. Her hand hit stone, the top of the shaft. She pushed against what felt like solid rock, and it moved, a carefully balanced false stone that swung aside on hidden hinges. Night air hit her face, cold and sharp, and absolutely beautiful. She pulled herself out into darkness and forest. For a moment, she just lay on the ground, gasping, her body shaking from exertion and adrenaline. Then she heard gunfire from below. "Julian!" She screamed it down the shaft. No response, just more gunfire, shouting, the sound of metal hitting metal. Alara grabbed the flashlight she'd dropped, aimed it down the shaft. "Julian!" A figure appeared on the ladder, climbing fast. But in the flashlight beam, she could see it wasn't Julian. It was one of them. The man looked up, saw her, raised his weapon. Alara did the only thing she could think of. She grabbed the false rock and shoved it back into place. Sealed the shaft. Trapped whoever was down there. The rock settled with a grinding sound. She could hear pounding from below. Muffled shouts, but the stone was solid, and she had no idea how to open it from below. She'd just sealed Julian in a tomb with armed killers. "No, no, no," she whispered, trying to move the rock again, but it was designed to open from below, not above. She couldn't budge it. The pounding intensified, then stopped, then nothing. Silence. Alara pressed her ear against the stone, listening desperately for any sound, for Julian's voice, for anything that meant he was still alive. Nothing. She wanted to scream, wanted to tear the rock apart with her bare hands, wanted to go back in time and never let him stay behind in the first place. But she could hear something else now. Footsteps in the forest, voices coordinating. They'd found the tunnel exit. More of them, surrounding her position. Julian's voice in her memory, "Don't stop for anything." She ran, north through the trees, branches whipping her face, roots trying to trip her. The Land Rover was where Julian said it would be, camouflaged under branches and netting. She tore off the covering, yanked open the door, found the keys exactly where he'd promised. The engine roared to life. Headlights illuminated forest and shadows, and 3 armed figures running toward her. Alara floored it. The Land Rover crashed through underbrush, bouncing over rocks and fallen logs. Bullets hit the rear window, spiderwebbing the glass, but not penetrating. Armor. Julian had thought of everything. She hit a logging road and accelerated. Behind her, headlights appeared. Pursuit. At least 2 vehicles, maybe more. Alara had never been good at driving, had barely driven in 3 years of New York living. But terror was an excellent teacher. She took corners too fast, fought the wheel as it tried to wrench from her hands, kept her foot on the gas even when every instinct screamed to brake. The coordinates Julian had given her were programmed into the GPS. 23 miles. A safe house. FBI protection. 23 miles might as well have been 1,000. The pursuing vehicles were gaining, faster, better drivers. She could see muzzle flashes in her rearview mirror as they fired at her tires. The logging road merged onto a highway. Alara blew through a stop sign, nearly collided with a semi, heard the angry blare of its horn as she swerved into the right lane. Traffic. Actual traffic. Witnesses. Cameras. The pursuit vehicles backed off slightly. Harder to kill someone with witnesses, but they didn't disappear, just maintained distance, waiting for her to make a mistake, waiting for the road to empty out again. Alara's phone, the satellite phone, was ringing. She grabbed it one-handed while trying to keep the vehicle on the road. "Alara!" Agent Reeves' voice. "Where are you? What happened? We lost contact with the security team and—" "They're all dead," Alara said. Her voice sounded mechanical, distant. "The house is gone. Julian is—" She couldn't finish. "I'm being pursued. 2 vehicles, maybe more. Highway 89 heading south." "Copy that. We have units en route. Can you make it to the coordinates Julian gave you?" "I don't know. They're right behind me." "Then drive, fast, don't stop. State police are being notified. We're setting up roadblocks. Just keep moving." The line went dead. Alara drove. Her hands were locked on the wheel, white-knuckled, shaking. Her mind kept replaying the moment she'd sealed the shaft, the silence that followed, Julian's face when he'd told her to climb. She'd left him to die. No. She'd survived like he told her to, but it felt the same. The highway stretched ahead, mostly empty now. Rural Vermont, dark except for her headlights and the headlights behind her. The pursuit vehicles were accelerating again, closing the distance. One pulled alongside her. The passenger window rolled down. A gun appeared. Alara swerved right, onto the shoulder, gravel spraying. The shot went wide. She accelerated back onto the pavement, cut across both lanes, nearly lost control. The second vehicle was trying to get in front of her, box her in. Standard pursuit tactic. She'd seen it in movies. Never thought she'd be living it. She saw a turnoff ahead, a smaller road leading into forest. A terrible idea tactically. Isolated, easy to trap her, but staying on the highway meant getting boxed in for certain. She took the turn at 60 miles an hour. The Land Rover tilted, two wheels leaving the ground, then slammed back down. Behind her, one pursuit vehicle made the turn. The other overshot, brake lights flaring. Now it was one-on-one. The smaller road was barely paved, full of potholes and curves. Alara's headlights caught deer eyes in the darkness. Trees pressed in on both sides. She was going too fast for conditions, but slowing down meant dying. The vehicle behind her was closer now. She could see the driver's face in her rearview mirror. Young, professional, expressionless. He rammed her from behind. The impact threw Alara forward against her seatbelt. The steering wheel jerked. She fought for control, overcorrected, felt the Land Rover start to fishtail. He rammed her again. This time she was ready. She hit the brakes hard just for a second, let him get right up on her bumper, then accelerated again. The timing threw off his next ram attempt. He hit her at an angle, sending both vehicles careening. Ahead, she saw it. A bridge. Old, wooden, definitely not rated for high-speed vehicle impacts. Alara made a decision. She accelerated toward the bridge, full speed, the Land Rover's engine screaming, the pursuit vehicle right behind her, matching speed, preparing to ram her over the edge. At the last second, Alara hit the brakes with everything she had. The Land Rover's anti-lock system engaged, tires screaming. The vehicle behind her didn't have time to react. It shot past her, onto the bridge, going way too fast. The bridge couldn't take it. Wood splintered. Supports gave way. The pursuit vehicle crashed through the railing and disappeared into the ravine below. Alara sat in her stopped vehicle, engine idling, hands still locked on the wheel, and listened to the sound of metal hitting rocks. An explosion. Fire blooming in the darkness below. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. She'd just killed someone. Maybe two someones. She'd shot a man in her apartment. Now she'd caused a vehicle to crash. 2 acts of violence in less than a week. 2 deaths on her conscience. The woman who'd spent years teaching children to read had become a killer. Movement in her peripheral vision. The second pursuit vehicle had found her. Was approaching slowly, cautiously. They'd seen what happened to their partners. Alara put the Land Rover in reverse, backed away from the destroyed bridge, then turned and drove into the forest on a path that wasn't really a path, just the space between trees. The pursuit vehicle followed. Branches scraped both sides of the Land Rover. The GPS was useless now. She'd gone completely off-road. No idea where she was. No idea where she was going, just driving away from the headlights behind her. Then the forest opened up, a clearing, and in the middle of it, a helicopter, FBI markings, rotors spinning, Agent Reeves standing beside it, weapon drawn, screaming something Alara couldn't hear over the noise. Alara hit the brakes, jumped out, ran toward the helicopter. Behind her, the pursuit vehicle burst into the clearing. Agents opened fire. The windshield exploded. The vehicle swerved, hit a tree, stopped. Hands grabbed Alara, pulled her toward the helicopter. She was lifted inside, the door slammed shut, and they were lifting off before she even processed what was happening. Through the window, she watched the clearing recede, watched agents swarming the pursuit vehicle, watched the forest where she'd just spent the worst hour of her life disappear into darkness. Then she turned to Agent Reeves, who was sitting across from her, and asked the question she'd been avoiding. "Julian?" Reeves's face told her everything before words did. "We found him," Reeves said carefully. "In the tunnel. He'd collapsed the entrance behind him, trapped the assault team, saved your life." "Is he alive?" Reeves hesitated. "He's in surgery, critical condition, multiple gunshot wounds. Alara, it's not good." The helicopter banked. Alara stared out at the darkness and felt something inside her finally break. Not the clean break of anger or the sharp break of fear, something deeper. The foundation she'd been standing on for 29 years, The belief that if you just worked hard enough and were good enough and told the truth, things would work out. Julian was dying because he'd protected her. The security team was dead because they'd helped her. Thomas Whitmore was in hiding because he'd believed in her story. Everyone who touched her ended up damaged. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Federal facility in Boston. Secure, underground. Marcus can't reach you there." "And after?" "After you testify. We build the case. We put Marcus Chen away for life." Reeves paused. "If he doesn't kill you first." "He won't," Alara said quietly. "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm done hiding," Alara said. "I'm done running. I'm done letting him control the narrative." She looked at Reeves. "I want to do another interview. National television. Tomorrow. I want to tell everyone exactly what happened tonight. Everything. No filter. No legal review. Just the truth." "That's suicide," Reeves said. "You go public about the attack, you're admitting you're still alive. Marcus will send everything he has." "Good," Alara said. "Let him send it. Let him waste his resources on someone who's not afraid anymore. Because the thing about rock bottom is, once you hit it, you can't fall any further. I've got nothing left to lose. My work is destroyed. My reputation is shredded. The man I was starting to care about is dying because of me. What else can Marcus take?" "Your life," Reeves said flatly. "Then he takes it," Alara said. "But I'm not going silent. I'm not disappearing. I'm going to stand up and tell the world exactly who Marcus Chen is and what he's done. And if that gets me killed, at least I'll die honest." Reeves studied her for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Get me the producers at 60 Minutes. Tell them Alara Wynn wants to do a live interview. Tomorrow night. Prime time. And yes, I know it's insane. Set it up anyway." The federal facility was exactly as advertised. Underground, secure, designed to protect witnesses from people like Marcus Chen. Alara was given a room that felt like a cell with nicer furniture. Guards outside, no windows, no connection to the outside world except through approved channels. She should have slept, couldn't. Just lay on the bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Julian in surgery somewhere, about whether he'd survive, about whether survival even mattered at this point. Her phone, they'd given her a new secure one, rang at 3 a.m. Unknown number. She shouldn't have answered, did anyway. "Ms. Wynn," Marcus Chen's voice, smooth as ever. "I heard you had an exciting evening." Alara sat up. "How did you get this number?" "I have resources you can't imagine," Marcus said. "Even now, even with Interpol hunting me, even with my empire in ashes, I still have reach." "Then you know you've lost," Alara said. "The story is out. The documents are public. You're finished." "Perhaps," Marcus agreed, "but so are you. Your programs will never be rebuilt. I've made sure of that. Julian Vance is dying. My gift to you. And your reputation." He laughed. "Well, the internet is very creative. Half the world thinks you're a hero. The other half thinks you're a vindictive liar who destroyed a good man's life. You'll never know peace again." "I don't want peace," Alara said. "I want justice." "Then you'll be disappointed, because I'll never see a courtroom. I'll die in Dubai or disappear to somewhere without extradition. I'll live out my days in luxury while you spend yours looking over your shoulder, wondering when the next attempt on your life is coming." He paused. "I've won, Ms. Wynn. Even in losing, I've won, because I've taken everything from you that mattered."